just to set things up. So Praveen sir, आप तब तक अगर and then there is a gentleman who has joined in us, Nika Music, yes. So I have updated this 2000 years of economic history in one chart. ये अभी pinned link है ऊपर. इसमें आप देखेंगे at the start of 10th AD, the subcontinent, India was equal to subcontinent at that particular point of time. So it included areas of Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, etc. If you see, India's contribution to the world GDP was somewhere around, as per this chart, 35 to 36%. So if the world GDP was 100, India was producing at least one third of that. और जैसे जैसे ये 10th सेंचुरी एडी के बाद इस्लाम राइज हुआ है सब कॉन्टिनेंट में, वैसे वैसे आप देखेंगे कि जो सब कॉन्टिनेंट की इकोनॉमी है वो धीरे 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 श्रिंक होती जा रही है एज अ ग्लोबल प्रपोर्शन. And the hypothesis what we are discussing today is that the shrinkage in subcontinent's GDP in proportional to global GDP is inversely proportional to the rise of Islam in the subcontinent. And that's the discussion point. So Dr. Sinha, if you would like to share some thoughts here.
I think this could be quite spurious. You cannot rule out the whole impact of British colonialism, which has played a major role in draining the wealth out of that part of the world. I will simply say a lot more needs to be done to study this more carefully. The correlation can be fairly spurious if we don't control for those factors. That's my first thought on that. I just don't want to jump that quickly on that because the amount of wealth taken out by Britishers, I think there's a study by a Columbia economist who shows that the total drainage of the Indian economy by the Britishers was just enormous, really enormous. Till you take that out, I don't know what you can say about this, to be honest.
That is, Dr. Sinha, definitely a factor. क्योंकि जब हम देखते हैं from 10th century AD to all the way up to 1600, 1700, the decline is definitely there, but it suddenly rises after 17th century. और एकदम से फिर वो जो कॉन्ट्रैक्शन है ग्लोबल जीडीपी में इंडिया के कंट्रीब्यूशन का, वो ब्रिटिशर्स के आने के बाद और फास्ट हो जाता है. Today, the way we stand in, the global contribution to world economy, I think India is about 4%. And if we add in the other components of erstwhile India or the subcontinent, if we include Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, these areas as well, then at max it would be close to 5%, as against 33-35% global GDP share before the advent of Islam in the subcontinent. समर जी, मनु जी भी आ गए हमारे साथ. समर जी नमस्कार, बहुत दिनों बाद बातचीत हो रही है आपसे.
I'll just add one thing quickly to it, Anurag, if I could.
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Sinha.
Yeah. Look at China also. China dropped significantly too, and the European has increased significantly. So just keep all those factors in mind. That's all I'll say. Samar, go ahead.
Definitely. So that's a key consideration. What you're suggesting is that China has also declined, and whereas in China there was not so much Islam. That's true. But after the colonial period, China has been able to grow much faster in terms of nearly occupying the same position back at it started with, and that could be one reason that the colonial impact is felt in China and in India, but the recovery is faster in China and in the compared to subcontinent, and that again probably strengthen that viewpoint also, that even when it comes to recovery, since we have some challenges with respect to the ecosystem of Islam, or that is not very conducive towards economic growth, our recovery is not as fast as China. I think China is again close to 20% now of the 15-18% of the global GDP, if I'm not wrong, Dr. Sinha.
It could be, I'm not so sure, but Again, I don't want to spoil the room, Andalan. I think the India's lack of recovery has all to do with Nehru, and I feel like writing something on it. Maybe I will. It's one of the less talked about topics in India than it should be. Hussain Haqqani has done a very good job actually explaining portion of it. Uh, it was
Sorry, can you
purely
repeat the name of the author, Dr. Sinha, once again?
Hussain Haqqani. He
Hossein.
did not talk about this topic. He talked about how Pakistan positions itself uh, after independence and how a corollary of that is actually how China became so what it became. So, yeah, it goes to a slightly different area, but I think Nehru was a real culprit. I mean, a serious culprit in terms of dragging India down to where it was. And I think uh, he really was the biggest factor, I would say, not Islam at this time, unless you want to make some more connections between Nehru,
No,
Islam,
no,
and the
we
rest
are
that it
just
goes.
testing
But
this hypothesis, and we are open to including more. See, until and unless we identify the problem area, yeah, right, and there couldn't be a discussion on solutions. A lot of time, what we
okay,
do, what I've seen in today's policy making, is that a lot of solutions are provided without identifying the true problem. So
so,
we are trying to, yeah.
so I can tell you something. I mean, if you have a few minutes of time, I can
Of
explain
course,
this
sir.
to
Of
you,
course,
and
please go
then
ahead. Ha.
okay, okay. After India became independent, uh, the rest of the world was struggling with what is the right model to go forward, economic, social, political, everything, because we were sort of in new territory. Most of the countries were colonized. They were run by the British Queen or the East India Company or whatever was the residual of that. And so there was a confusion, and different countries chose different ways to go, different directions to go. Um, Definitely, Nehru was 100% sold on communism. There is plenty of evidence in that. US was a capitalistic country and had done very well. If you look at, uh, there's several references, but I think I'll stick to the Haqqani's book. Um, Chinese had very quickly figured out that improving economic ties with USA is very important for their own growth, and they tried to build relationship with the USA for that reason. But they were rebuffed. I mean, the the American presidents had no interest, especially after what happened in China, and millions of people were killed in the Chinese Revolution and all that. But they tried, and I think the brokering role was played by Pakistan. Whereas when offers were made to India to have better economic relations with the USA or better ties with the USA, I won't say economic, but better ties, Nehru 100% rebuffed it at every stage when that gesture was made. The most prominent one is the one in, uh, I believe it's in late 1950s or early 1960 when Nehru made a visit to USA. People should read about it, how well he was received. JFK was all gung ho over Nehru, called him a great international leader, he addressed the joint houses of the Congress, Senate, and House of Representatives. He was given a VIP. Indira Gandhi was with him, and the classic part was a meeting he had in the White House with JFK, in which JFK literally, and this is a account written by both Nehru's personal secretary as well as the personal secretary or the chief of staff at JFK. They both said exactly the same thing. That JFK literally said to Nehru that we are in a trouble in Vietnam. I need guidance from you. Just imagine the most powerful person in the world asking Nehru. And Nehru basically, literally, by current standards, insulted him. Did not respond, did not pay any attention. And the US foreign policy has a continuity to it. Despite that, JFK had a very soft corner for India. He wanted to build better terms with India, but Nehru has zero interest in the USA and JFK. If you look at what happened after JFK came to India, it was a very good trip. Some people say that Nehru was only interested in Jacqueline Kennedy when he came with JFK, when JFK came to India. Anyway, he left. He gave out a pretty large number of green card lot. Do we have
Dr.
problem?
Sinha, please go ahead. No, please go ahead.
He gave out a lot of green card lotteries to Indians, and a lot of Gujaratis who came to USA in 60s are a result of that. And actually, I know some of them. Um, so he was very much in the mood of promoting better ties with India. That is something we do not hear in India very much. Neither have the historians written about it. The net result was that when Nehru rebuffed him and literally, you know, rejected all the offers, uh, China at the same time was trying to build better relationships, and that's where Haqqani book talks about how China and Pakistan worked together to broker a deal with the US. When JFK was assassinated and then eventually Nixon came, Nixon was very angry at India, very angry, because he had read and he knew about the past of Nehru's deeds. By the way, after when China attacked India, Nehru immediately called JFK after insulting him in White House that you must do something to protect us, which USA at that time actually did. But coming back to the story, Nixon was not at all happy with India, and his foreign secretary was Henry Kissinger. They both had extreme hatred for India, not because of anything else, just because of the Nehru and Indira Gandhi's attitude towards India. He is the one who made a determination that we need presence in Asia. Pakistan brokered the deal, and that's how China came into picture. China was basically viewed as an extreme human rights violator, an autocratic communist country. They had no interest, but Nixon went out of way because he needed a presence in Asia and the dirty work that Nehru had done in his previous visit. Now, if you think carefully, China, now most of the people know, really used that opportunity to their best advantage. And they became what they are now. They maintained economic relations with the USA, but on their own terms. They were tough negotiators, and they finally made the economy become what it is. I don't think Nehru had any such vision or any idea how to deal with the West. And the only thing was that they're evil people, we'll stay away from them.
That
If
is
we
true.
had somebody like Modi at that time, I think India would have been a totally different country. And that's why I'm trying to say that Islam may have nothing to do with this. It's basically lousy, third rate, I would say C grade students who basically became leaders who were incompetent and had low intellect. That's how I leave it.
No, that's the whatever you said, Dr. Praveen. 100% agree with that. But that's only the last 70, 80, 90 years, right? In terms of the policy paralysis or choosing a wrong policy framework by the Congress government successively in the last 50, 60, 70 years. Just one fact to add over here, Dr. Praveen, in terms of economic policy, lot of people credit Manmohan Singh to be the one who brought in the economic reforms, but that is actually an incorrect statement. If you see the last communication, normally IMF and World Bank release certain set of communication after few years so that it doesn't has much political implication. And with those kind of correspondence coming out, I think it came out couple of years back, it is evident that PV Narasimha Rao and Manmohan Singh actually succumbed to IMF and World Bank pressure to open up the economy. It was a forced decision rather than a chosen one. So so all those people
I,
who
I
would like to praise Manmohan Singh or PV Narasimha Rao, I think you should praise IMF and World Bank for forcing that decision through PV Narasimha Rao and Manmohan Singh ji.
so let me just clarify.
Yes,
The
Dr.
point
Praveen.
I was making is that we talked about this whole topic of Islam and economy. We pointed out to the fact that a lot of wealth suck up was because of the colonial, and that the second part of your question was what happens after the countries became independent. I was trying to say that before it was Britishers, after that was Nehru. And coming back to your point on Manmohan Singh's role in economic boom of India, I totally agree. He had zero role to play, literally zero role. He accepted whatever. India had no choice. India had no choice. Still, pretty much like the way situation we are in Pakistan is in. The only difference is that Pakistan is a client country. It has got protectors. India had no protectors, so India had no choice, and that's what happened, and that's how we are. Your statement is
What we can say,
absolutely
whatever
right.
happened happened for good. Yeah, but let me take some more inputs in. So Neeraj ji, Samar ji, and this is what we are not talking about is last 100 years. हम लोग बात उस समय की कर रहे हैं 10th सेंचुरी एडी की. ऊपर मैंने 2000 ईयर्स ऑफ इकोनॉमिक हिस्ट्री ऑफ द वर्ल्ड एक चार्ट में, सिंगल चार्ट में प्रेजेंटेड है. इसमें आप देख सकते हैं एट द स्टार्ट ऑफ द 10th century India was the largest, or let me call it Indian subcontinent, because at that particular point of time, India or Bharat meant, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan, put together. ये विश्व का एक इकोनॉमिकल पावर हाउस था, contributing 33% to the global economy. So what USA is today, India used to be in 10th century AD. What happened? How come we reached from 33% of the global economy contributor to less than 5% now? Is the topic we are dwelling in. And my hypothesis is, and this is not a conclusion, and this is the point we want to discuss today, is that what I see a clear correlation is the advent of Islam is indirectly proportional to the contribution of Indian subcontinent in the global GDP. So 10th century onwards is the time of rise of Islam in the subcontinent, and that is precisely coinciding with the decline of the subcontinent economy. So Neeraj ji, Samar ji, Varun ji, Manu ji, your views.
I think I just checked this one and it is quite surprising. I was not aware of this. But you're right that this chaos and this, continuous more than 1000 years of oppression in this region, this destruction, this has definitely contributed to chaos. And today also, if you see, it is the same model. And at times, I feel that the foreign agents, they are the reason, they are the catalyst, they are pushing in money. India is about to become the fifth largest economy of the world. It would have happened a couple of years back only. But due to COVID and other issues, I believe it has not reached there yet. Or maybe in the next evaluation will be the fifth largest. So some of the countries are not liking it. They are pushing money to keep India down. And right now, the incumbent government's focus is also to, bring it on economy and take it forward. At the same time, trying to take care of the situation which is in India, which has. And the second thing is definitely it has a impact. Whenever you create chaos, it impacts the economy, it impacts the development, it impacts the prosperity of the country. So you're right. So yeah.
अच्छा, इट्स जस्ट नॉट पीपल, राइट. ये इस पे मैं थोड़ा सा डिटेल में बाद में बात करूंगा, बट इज द इंटायर आइडियोलॉजी इटसेल्फ is not very conducive to economic growth per se. The one of the primary factor of Islam, and when I say Islam, I just don't mean the religious aspect of Islam. When I talk about social Islam, political Islam, economic Islam, in case there is any, so those are the aspects we are talking about. So it is not about how somebody prays and to whom somebody prays, but what is the positive or negative contribution of a particular ideology on a region, and this we are evaluating. समर जी, वरुण जी, आप कुछ बोलना चाहेंगे इस विषय पे? या वरुण जी, go ahead.
Yeah, Varunji, please.
Okay. So basically, I want to come to the aspect where we were comparing Pakistan and Indian economy. I think the main differentiator was that India relied more on manufacturing base, and we always had a robust manufacturing base after automobile industry came in. So once your automobile industry comes in a country, and there are ripple effects on other industries as well. I mean, uh, you know, um, like for example, a Honda or a Maruti, they will have job workers. So they will be subcontracting the work. So according to me, I mean, that was a key differentiator why India is booming, and why Pakistan is basically struggling. They are basically a economy which imports almost everything. They cannot even manufacture, I'm told, thermometer in their own country. They will have to import it from, usually from India, but now they are importing from other countries. Even wheat, I'm told, they are importing from Ukraine. So Pakistan is basically a country where you know um, mm, uh, hardly there is any manufacturing activity. But coming to the larger point, Islam rises, economy tanks. So, couple of submission. I mean, it's a known fact. Except Middle East. Why do I say Middle East? I mean, these countries are progressive, and they adopted different type of Islam, which is inviting to all, which is more tolerant than the subcontinent one. I mean, Islam, which is prevalent in subcontinent, is actually extremely
अच्छा वरुण भाई, एक छोटा सा अगर इंटरजेक्शन कर लूं, when we talk about Middle East, right, what we see Middle East today is a story of last 50-60 years only. When we look at Middle East till about 1930s, when either oil was not very important or the oil discoveries were not there, the condition of the people in Middle East were horrible. So
absolutely.
if you remove the oil aspect of their economies, there is nothing else, I mean, frankly speaking.
No, but Andolanji, they also, they changed their outlook as well. I mean, they became more tolerant. They sent their, kids to better education, and they got better education, and they came back to their own respective countries and have been very successful. I mean, today look at Mohammed bin Salman. Only recently, his interview came, and he told about there needs to be modification in Islam, and that's how civilization progress and evolve. So that's why I compare Middle East. I mean, if Indian Muslims or Muslims in the subcontinent, they want to take an inspiration, I think they should take an inspiration from Middle East, not from Pakistan. And
Pakistan. And
that
there I agree with you. Even we have seen the Bangladesh example. The Bangladesh Prime Minister being a lady, right? Forgo certain fundamental tenets of Islam with respect to, having a women participation in economy, do better. And all those have yielded results, right, for Bangladesh as well.
No, actually not. In Bangladesh, the wealth is concentrated among only top 100 families, and there is so much in income inequality. You look at the Bangladesh economy. I mean, I know people. There are rich I mean, Indians from Bengal. I mean, people, they are having manufacturing base there. It's a there is a high poverty rate, and the bubble will burst, and they don't invest in their own country. All these top, they live abroad, predominantly in UK and United States. And this bubble will burst, and the economy will tank soon. And given the circumstances, what is happening right now, it will tank soon. So that's why I don't compare Bangladesh.
Huh. But again, the discussion was not very contemporary. We are not just talking last 50, 60 years. We are talking about advent of Islam in the Indian subcontinent, and the time period is what I have presented in the chart above. Roughly 10th century AD, where Islam started having a foothold in the subcontinent. At that point of time, the subcontinent had a global contribution of 35% to the global GDP. Today, we are down to 5%, and I'm taking 5%, including India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan, the erstwhile Indian or the Bharat or the Akhand Bharat, जिसको बोलते जो पहले होता था. लेट्स टेक मोर इनपुट्स. समर जी, यस समर जी, आप उस समय वरुण जी के लिए रुक गए थे. देन विल गो टू विश्वामित जी, प्रशांत जी एंड अधिराज जी.
I will get back. Andalan ji, yeah, thank you for giving me opportunity. So I heard Varun's point. Varun's point was to the point, and in the near future, we can expect that the Islamic economy will surely tank. Regarding Islamic economic system, you might have witnessed there might be inflation present around the globe, but they are least affected. If you talk about this particular year as well, the inflation is about you can say 3% in all the GCC countries. If you go back to the earlier era, so you can see if you're talking about the 7 to 15 centuries, so you can see the acceptance of Islam mainly in the Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and in Asia was due to the trade that used to take place, and the spread of Islam also took place due to contact with the merchants. So when you go about and see that during this 7th to 15th century, the Muslim merchants, they dominated both the African as well as the Eurasian trade routes. So the people, the indigenous people who were living over there, they didn't. They were basically tribals, right? So when they came in contact with these Muslim merchants, they were exposed to the Muslim doctrine. So they were Christian traders as well. But as Muslims dominated the trade routes, so the tribals found that they had only two choices. One, either to stick to their tribal religion, local customs, or either get converted to a Muslim. So this is how we can say that Muslim the Islam religion spread. Secondly, if you go by a particular research by an organization known as Pew Research Center, so it has projected that the Muslims will be the fastest growing religious group. If you consider their data from about 2015 up till 2060, that is what they have mentioned. So, according to them, the Muslim population is expected to increase by 70%, the highest of any religious group. Second comes the Christian community by 34%, and Hindus are measly 27%. So, according to what Varun said, Varun's point, I like agree with Varun's point that in present times, their economy survives all types of economic crisis that occurs across the globe. But in near future, as dependency on oil is gradually receding due to like improvement in new technologies such as electric vehicles and also blended fuels also. So I expect in near future, like if you talk about 57 Islamic countries, only 3 or 4 countries would be able to survive. And surely we can expect their economy to collapse if they remain to be radicalized and don't accept to be more, you can say, homogeneous with all other countries or communities around the globe. These are my initial points. I will get back when we proceed with the
Sure, sure.
discussion.
We'll circle back to all these speakers. A. Vishwamitra and then Prashant.
Yeah, let Prashant speak. I'll be 5 minutes after that.
Okay, so then I'll have Prashant and Adhiraj, and then I'll come circle back to you.
आंदोलन जी, एक छोटी सी न्यूज देना चाह रहा था मैं, थोड़ा प्रशांत जी को एक सेकंड के लिए रोकूंगा कि एक खुशी की बात यह है कि जम्मू नगर में अब शेख नगर का नाम शिव नगर और अम्फल्ला चौक का नाम हनुमान चौक कर दिया गया है। तो जय हो योगी बाबा की, उनके यूपी मॉडल को देखते हुए।
जी जी,
धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद. Okay, so Prashant ji, over to you.
तो आंदोलन जी, ये ग्राफ के बेसिस पे जो आपका कंक्लूजन है, जैसे हमारे दिन में भी बात हो रही थी, टू मी डजंट मेक मच सेंस. आप एक लाल रंग का भी जो अगर आप ग्राफ देखिएगा, you see these were the two major economic powerhouse in the old and ancient times, right? एक लाल रंग और एक ऑरेंज रंग.
Yeah.
Yeah. and over a period of time, so the decline of the orange actually starts to happen a little earlier than the red one. But by 1950s, they both are at their lowest position, pretty
Yes,
much
that's
about
right.
the same share, right?
Yes, that's right.
Right. And the decline, so the decline is not because of, again, if you look at other countries also, around after the 10th century AD, there is a increase, there is a very sharp increase in the European countries, the development and the economic share
That's right.
the European countries start to take it. And the share is not in isolation with the internal Indian politics, but you also have to look at the external, because both these countries have faced the problems of imperialism. And when the imperialism reaches its peak, that's when both these countries actually see the major decline.
Mm.
So I do not know how you have read this graph, but it is very difficult for me to say that based on your reading, your conclusions are like valid.
Yeah, this is just a hypothesis, right? So, we'll input your point. So, ठीक है, opening
Yeah, so
statements.
those factors are again needs to be looked into, the world factors, as well as the fact that how China and India's decline. China didn't have an Islamic invasion, unlike what we faced in India.
India, yes, you're right there.
Yeah, and then the economic impact is pretty much the same to follow the pattern.
Right. So, however, what I would suggest is the imperialism, if we closely monitor this particular graph itself. But let me do one thing. Let me first get, inputs from everybody, and then we'll circle back. So, Adiraj, and then A, and then Agam.
Thank you, Andolanji, for that. I don't have much points, but I want to bring to notice the growth in GDP of our neighboring country, Bangladesh, and the growing exports when it comes to technically speaking to, I think, textile industry has grown leaps and bounds, Andolanji. So I think we must also look at the growth model of Bangladesh and its movement from uh, orthodox politics to a more secular force politically in Bangladesh. So, yeah, I mean, the GDP growth is phenomenal, Andolan, and I think we must also acknowledge the same.
No,
Yeah, thank
definitely.
you.
So just to add over here, this is an analysis I was doing some time back. And one of a very interesting feature of, at least in the last, 70, 80 years, 1950 onwards, one of the key factors of growth, or, when any country grows, right, one of the key factors which is identified is women participation in economy. Wherever there is a fast inclusion of women participating in the economy, the growth rate of that particular economy is tremendous. So we saw the same trend in Europe, in the early 1900 to 1950s. We saw the same trend in, South Korea and China, and we are seeing a similar trend in Bangladesh as well. So if you see, one of the major factors is that the women participation in economy in Bangladesh has grown fairly decently in the last 15, 20 years. And that is actually, giving impetus to that fast growth rate. But having said that, let me move to Agam and have some viewpoints from Agam. No, sorry, I had to go to A, Vishwamitra first. A,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So now, real quick, like for any economic development, it's very important that what objectives you set up as a nation, right? And we have seen, especially in our neighboring country, that the objective is not been for the overall development and building the resilience in the economy, but rather getting to be considered as a security state. And unfortunately, the word I don't find better than this is the vengeance state. Basically, you're taking vengeance against so-called injustice. And this is very interesting, right? Whenever you want to justify vengeance, you can actually mask it that this is a call against the injustice. And this injustice is very interesting thing, right? It is very subjective. There is no objective understanding of injustice, because I can say that the injustice towards my point of view versus your point of view, and we both have different way of explaining injustice, and yet one can prevail over other, and we can keep debating over that which one, whose injustice is more important. So this is the problem when an economic objective talks more about making a state militarily strong, physically more relevant to the global, warring powers, and play a role that is counterproductive to the masses in general, but highly productive for specific security and financial apparatus of any state, right? And this has been repeatedly seen in a lot of Islamic economies, where they become the purchaser and buyer of the military weapons rather than producers. And there is a difference, right? When you produce something, even though you're developing it for the security purposes, the transfer of technology can also happen. Like, for example, the refrigerator to begin with was developed part of the military operations. It was developed for the military, but eventually it got into the civil usage. Same thing with the internet, right? The internet was, so what happens when then economy is just focusing on becoming just the mercenary, and objective is to just take vengeance against your competitor, uh, then you are creating a system, a society where you are your economic decline is like, it's writing on the wall, and therefore it is the challenge. I can talk more about Bangladesh in a minute, because Bangladesh has done something very remarkable with the help of India, of course, that they have not used this so-called injustice and vengeance model to be mainstream into their economic objective. They rather use their first they wanted to ensure their resilience against natural disasters. So with the help of India, they developed a very good community-based disaster management system, which has prevented the death. If you remember, Andalanji, since you and I
The
are on the
curse of
same age group,
Brahmaputra. The
exactly, Curse
curse
of
of
Brahmaputra.
Brahmaputra.
Every year you would hear that X number of Bangladeshis, and of course some Indians were being killed due to the flooding and cyclone, which so that is something very important for any country to achieve, when they don't acknowledge their real problem is not the injustice, but their real problem is climate and disaster vulnerability, and they start building on it. I'll talk more about it later, but I
But
just wanted to
AG,
leave it here.
regarding Bangladesh again, as I mentioned, there is high income inequality. No economy should be considered as developed or developing if the gap of income inequality widens. So, as in the case of Bangladesh, the wealth is concentrated amongst 100 or 150 families, and they don't live in Bangladesh. They don't invest in Bangladesh. They invest. They take their wealth abroad and invest there. So the money doesn't flow in the economy. The money is outside Bangladesh. So, and that's the problem, and the bubble will burst soon.
Yeah, I agree with Varunji. And the thing which you said, inequality is it is inevitable, right? It will always happen. But the democratic process, where there is a free parties, there are multiple parties running for elections, there is a smooth transition of power. These activities somehow help the wealth redistribution process, which has happened in India over a period of time. But the problem with Bangladesh is also their democracy is not robust. It's a one-party government right now, pretty much. And the moment the ruling party loses, it would be big chaos and mayhem because of the Islamist forces, trying to take control over the masses. So I agree with you. The challenge it looks right now very well, but over a period of time it may not survive, and that is the real risk.
Right. So let me take Agam point of view also, and then we move it to next phase of discussion, जहाँ पे अभी तक जितने भी पॉइंट्स आए हैं मैं उसको थोड़ा सा समराइज करके आगे उस पर थोड़ी सी और इनपुट्स लूंगा. Agam, what's your viewpoint on the topic? Look at the chart, and do you find any correlation of growth of Islam with the contraction of subcontinent economy?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Andolan ji. सबसे पहले सत श्री अकाल and Jai Shri Ram to all the panelists. So, see, when it comes to the economy, one point I remember very clearly what Andolan ji you just said. I really very much agree with your point that whenever there is more of a women's participation in the economy, economies have grown. Economies have grown, and we have seen countries really doing a tremendous job because, as we all know, that if we distribute the economical responsibilities to even the other half of the population, regardless of the gender they are from, you actually see tremendous things happening economically, right? Now the thing is, why is there a correlation with growth of Islam and that kind of scenario in the economics? Is because of the it's all because of the mindset. It's all because what law has said, that you have to keep women different from it. You have to limit the rights of the women. I would like to quote something, and I would just like to tell before I quote that I'm quoting from an external website which is legitimate, whose legitimacy is being verified by Saudi Arabia. So
Acha, par
Andolan ji,
Agam
with your
ji,
permission.
my humble request would be, rather than quoting scriptures, you can just quote the general trend. I think people are,
Okay. आंदोलन जी, just one sentence because for the
ठीक है,
next
बोलिए
statement
बोलिए
थोड़ा सा
बोलिए.
एक line लूंगा बस मैं. So this Sahih al-Bukhari 2658 which says that Prophet peace be upon him, he said, isn't the witness of a woman equal to half of that of a man? The woman said yes. The Prophet peace be upon him, he said,
Acha, when you
this is
say,
because of the
Agam ji,
deficiency
when you
of a
say
woman's mind.
peace be upon him, peace is a good friend. You have to take his consent as well. But then again, that was on the lighter side. So let's move forward.
So Andolan ji, the last line, the great leader said, this is because of the deficiency of a woman's mind. So see, it is based upon the principles. When we say the women's mind is deficient in nature, while if our law books are saying this, some law books of some countries are saying this, then you actually limit the participation of the women in society, right? Now, Andolan ji, if you look at it, when people talk about Dubai or some Islamic countries, the only argument that people have on this is that, see how Dubai is growing so much, and the Arabic countries are very much developed or something. So if Islam was a hindrance to it, then we would not have witnessed such kind of a development, right? Now the point is, see, Andolanji, if you look at it from an example, if you distribute some kind of gold coins in the hands of a 10-year-old child, even he will be able to employ many people under him. So the only blessing that the Gulf countries have is oil. I don't know after they will get rid of the oil, maybe they will be using that technology and will be flying, as somebody said, flying horses. I think that technology will be used soon, very very soon.
We wish them good. The idea is not to wish anybody bad. I mean, let their economy grow. But then again, what we are talking about is more historical rather than projecting the future. So if you can sum your point on that.
See, okay, so I'll sum it up. I will just say ki, if you are having resources and having that technology, having that level to channelize those resources, is a very different thing. If you look at the Arabic countries, so the history says that who are the actual people who are on the administrative side and controlling them. The pipelines, the technology, the way of transportation, all is being managed by the Americans. We are very much aware of that. And all the localites of those Arabic countries, what are they doing? They're sitting just earning money on the taxes. So when it comes to developing that human resource, you need to have certain basic standards in society. You need to develop some basic educational system. You have to liberalize your policies. You have to come out of the dogmatic practices. That's the only time you can expect a country or a population of a country to be actually productive. If you are still sticking to the dogmatic practice and dogmatic beliefs, then okay, just enjoy your oil which is being blessed to you by the Almighty. After then what? After then who's going to ask the Gulf countries? So in order to have in order to progress on this side, you need to liberalize your thoughts. You need to be with the time rather than sticking to the dogmatic practices. And I totally blame those dogmatic practices and
सम
those
अप कर दीजिए
belief
अगम भाई.
system
हाँ.
G, which is actually causing the Gulf countries to I mean, there's a inverse relationship between the growth of Islam and growth of economy. Thank you so much.
राइट. तो अभी जैसे क्या कहते हैं, वी डिस्कस दिस पर्टिकुलर एस्पेक्ट एंड विल गेट बैक टू डिस्कसिंग इट इन थ्रेडबेयर डिटेल. बट प्रशांत रेज्ड अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग पॉइंट. ही सेड इवन चाइना इज डिक्लाइनिंग. But I, with that notion, I went back and looked at the charts again. China wasn't declining from 10th century all the way up to 17 and a half century, whereas India was. And the maximum decline is during that period, and that is the time of colonial period where India and China both declined. So while I don't think there would be a disagreement that colonial impact was felt on both Indian and Chinese economy, but the only thing which probably explain the decline between the 10th century AD to the 17th and early part of 18th century is the Islamic presence of and the rise of Islam in India, because that is the period where China is not showing any major decline, and in fact in the 16th 17th century it has in fact shown an increase in this proportion. So you clearly see India's chart and China chart. But India's decline during the Islamic rise is much more, and China is not facing that problem because China's share is consistent all the way up to early part of 18th century. When I say 18th century, means up to 1815, 1820. So Prashantji, the point which you were making with respect to that China not having the Islamic impact is correct, and that is precisely, you do not see any decline in the Chinese economy till about late 18th century, which is the colonial period. So yes, colonial period had its impact, but to say Islam has not causes a deterioration in the subcontinent economy, I think your China point actually further strengthens that Islam genuinely had an impact in deterioration of the subcontinent's economy. अच्छा, इसके साथ साथ मेरा एक क्वेश्चन और भी रहेगा, and people can look at it. When we talk about economic models in today's world, we predominantly talk about the economic models which are promoted or which have found scholarship in the Western outlook. But is anybody aware that when we were the largest economy in the world, what was the economic model used? I'm talking about the economic model. I'm not talking whether the money was coming from agriculture or whether the money from... Just 1 second, Prashantji. Yeah.
Feudal economy.
Okay. No, it wasn't a feudal economy per se, but if you want to call it that, we would take that points as well. So this is also I wanted to understand. Are we fully aware of what was the model which made us so successful, and why aren't we discussing that model in today's day and time? Why are we only limited to discussing 2 or 3 economic model, that is communism, socialism, and capitalism?
So, Andolanji, that was a feudal economy, and keep in mind, this is a percentage share. So, by 1600, the world GDP was 74 billion, which is 2% of our current GDP. So, it doesn't mean that we were producing a lot of things.
But we are producing the most of the things in the world, right?
Yes,
so we were successful compared to others.
Most of the things were mostly to do with agriculture. Agriculture was the mainstay in the world, and it is a known fact that the Indo-Gangetic Plains and the Yellow River Plains were one of the most fertile lands in the world.
Yeah,
and
that is true, Prashantji. But at the same time, when we look at Prashantji, when we look at the mainstay of the economy during that period, 10th century AD all the way up to 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th century, we were also producing a lot of things which were being exported out of the Indian subcontinent to Europe, to other places. And that was not limited to agriculture produce only. We were doing clothes, we were doing pottery, we were doing, I think wine used to be
Handicrafts.
imported into India, handicrafts and all of those things. So it wasn't just the Gangetic Plains. So so to say that
नहीं
the few so and it was an era of micro enterprise booming across India. I mean, that's also a fact which have been recorded in economic histories. But having said so, let's get some more inputs. तो जो आप पहले इनिशियल पॉइंट बोल रहे थे प्रशांत जी अगेंस्ट इस्लाम्स इम्पैक्ट ऑन सब कॉन्टिनेंट, एक्चुअली इट फर्दर स्ट्रेंथन्स, क्योंकि इस्लाम केवल इंडियन सब कॉन्टिनेंट में आया था, चाइना में नहीं आया था. चाइना का शेयर लार्जली कंसिस्टेंट बना रहा है 17th सेंचुरी तक,
कंसिस्टेंट
और
भी कहाँ
इंडिया का शेयर डिक्लाइन होता रहा है 10th सेंचुरी से लेकर
कंसिस्टेंट
17th सेंचुरी तक,
कंसिस्टेंट
विच इज ऑल्सो
कंसिस्टेंट नहीं रहा है।
अनदर फैक्टर. या
अब ध्यान से देखिए, कंसिस्टेंट नहीं रहा है, वहां पे भी उतार चढ़ाव आया है। तो चाइना में उतार चढ़ाव आया है, और आप देखिएगा कि ये एंड ऑफ 19th सेंचुरी देयर इज अ बिग राइज एंड देन देयर इज अ डिक्लाइन बिफोर द इंपीरियलिज्म किक्स इन।
हाँ, सो
वो
इंपीरियलिज्म
चाइना के खुद
बेसिकली
के
किक्ड इन.
इंटरनल
हाँ,
रीजन है।
तो अगर प्रशांत जी जिस तरह से मैं चार्ट को देख पा रहा हूं नेकेड आइज से, उसमें मुझे ये दिख रहा है कि चाइना का शेयर जो है या तो कंसिस्टेंट रहा है 10th सेंचुरी एडी से लेकर 17th सेंचुरी तक, या बढ़ा है ड्यूरिंग द एंड ऑफ 17th सेंचुरी, और इंडिया का शेयर कंसिस्टेंटली डिक्लाइन करा है 10th सेंचुरी एडी से लेकर 17th सेंचुरी तक, और उसके बाद तेजी से और डिक्लाइन करा है.
मेरा जो रीडिंग है, जिस तरह से मैं ग्राफ को देख रहा हूँ,
हाँ,
वो
लेट्स
ऐसा
टेक
है कि
मोर
10th
इनपुट्स
सेंचुरी
आल्सो.
एडी
हाँ
से लेकर 10th सेंचुरी
हाँ
10th सेंचुरी एडी तक दोनों इंडिया और चाइना का डिक्लाइन किया है। 10th सेंचुरी से चाइना का इंक्रीज होता है एंड गोज टू क्लोज टू अबाउट 29%।
जी.
ठीक है, 29%। उसके बाद दैट इज अराउंड 1600 एडी, और उसके बाद देयर इज अ शार्प डिक्लाइन
या
until 1700 AD,
यस
and then there is again increase up to more than 30%
या
in 1820 AD,
यस
and then there is a sharp decline after that.
यस यस.
तो ये जो उतार चढ़ाव है वो वहां पे भी है, वो
let's
कंसिस्टेंट नहीं है।
see whether my naked observation
आप
by
देखिए जो वो
naked eyes.
ग्राफ,
हाँ
मैं आप ही के ग्राफ से बता रहा हूँ।
हाँ, मुझे तो जो ग्राफ दिख रहा है, चाइना लार्जली अपना वो जो 20-25% शेयर है वो मेंटेन करके चल रहा है एंड ऑफ 17th, और 17 पे आप सही कह रहे हो, उसने बढ़ाया भी है. इंडिया कांस्टेंट डिक्लाइन पे है, देयर इज नो उतार चढ़ाव, इट इज ओनली उतार. सो एनीबडी एल्स? मनु जी, वरुण जी, अगम जी, प्रवीण जी ने मेरे ख्याल से पहले भी इनपुट नहीं दिए. प्रवीण जी, आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगे इस विषय पे?
Yes, this is Praveen. I am joining this group for the first time.
You are most welcome, Praveen ji. Any thoughts on the topic?
Yes, I got something. I mean, earlier some inputs were there stating that the Gulf countries, especially wherein this development of technology is poor, they were just like a consumers and their economies entirely built upon taxes and all. But that may not be the example in all the Gulf countries, and places like Iran, for example. They have well developed, more self-sufficient kind of technology and economy compared to the other Arab countries like Saudi Arabia or UAE, wherever they are dependent on the Western technology and Western assistance. But Iraq and Iran, for example, is not like that. So that generalization may not be applicable. One thing, but another thing which coming to the point you are talking on, the decline of economy during the Islamic regime, which I also I haven't analyzed it macroscopically, but it is very well clear that the intention of the invention and the purpose of the invention, and considering that the way in which wealth was being taken away from this part of the world, so it is very clear that there should be all reasons for a decline, even though I haven't analyzed any charts.
So that's not just the invaders taking away the wealth part which we are discussing. We are also probably evaluating whether Islam as an ideology is counterproductive to economic growth. So that's the moot point which we are discussing.
Okay. Then the effects of the Islam in the countries where Islam was in the prime, like for example the countries like Saudi Arabia or Persia, wherein there are periods in which they have also went to their prime during the Islamic regime, no? Like even the technology wise, there were several inventions
So
happened in the Middle
if we
East.
if we look at subcontinent, Pravinji,
Ah,
so the discussion is more centered around
okay,
subcontinent,
okay,
because
okay.
in Gulf countries the
Yes,
situation post 1930s changed due to oil,
oil.
but
Yes,
pre 1930 we also see the same factor in the Middle East as well. With the advent of Islam, they were economically not a very prosperous set of nations. But when we talk specifically, look into the Indian subcontinent areas and the most affected Islamically. When I say affected, I mean the most population of Islam are in Afghanistan, Pakistan, northern part of India, and we see the impact of rise of Islam. I mean, even if we look today, Afghanistan, Pakistan are very Islamic countries, and economically they are doing very bad. I mean, even in current context.
basically one thing I have noticed, like wherever Islam is there, they the most impact. I mean, but they are very good at commercialization and trade. So when you're having like when you have a country who is having resources and if you are having things to be traded off,
So
such part.
you're suggesting resource harvesting they are good at.
Yes, you can say like that because this
Right.
part of I'm coming from Kerala, so they were very good at trading. Like even before the Europeans discovered, or we were here only, but still they discovered us through Columbus only. Even the Columbus before the arrival of Columbus itself, for nearly 500 700 years, there was a channel of trade happened between the southern state of Kerala and Arab countries. Basically, they were using the sea route only, not the land route actually. So that way, the trade kind of thing, it normally I have seen it blossoming in during that period. But if you are saying about the proper economic development, including of interest in incubation of technology and translation to industrial growth, that may not be happening. But trade as an entity, that I have seen blossoming under Islamic influence.
I consider that was a new convert economy, right? So there was a lot of transition, pre-Islamic and post-Islamic conversion
Uh, because
economy.
because
So
because like in Kerala, if you see, we are good at spices and all. So there were the first customers were from Arab only. Then through Arab only, the news went to the western part of the world, and from there only, then they started looking for the where India is there. Then finally they landed. Then there was a struggle between and Arabs for who will be the mightier one, who
So
want
on a
more
lighter
rights
side,
for the trade and all.
so Pravinji, on a lighter side, what you're saying, the Arab informed the world that India is the one with lot of money and worth looting. Is that?
No, no, no,
No, no, yeah,
no,
okay.
no, not that way. I'm saying that we were made. I mean, this part of the Kerala, like the spices and all those resources availability here, that information is surely gone through them only. That is and through Chinese also. I think Chinese, but there are only lesser Chinese. Not I cannot say about the entire India. I'm telling about the southern part of India,
चलिए
Kerala.
अब
So the
थोड़ा
Chinese
सा आगे मूव करते हैं. We have new speakers on the panel. We have got Sam, we have got
okay,
Amar,
okay.
and let me pose this hypothesis to Sam and Amar. So Sam, the hypothesis. अच्छा, you wanted to say
yeah,
something. पहले
just
आप
quick
point
one,
complete
right?
कर
There were
लीजिए.
a
Yeah.
couple of things that we have to understand. The governance model, which has been really worked out for India's benefit, was and that actually contributed to our overall economic resilience, was the panchayat system, which is I think one of the most ancient kind of a democratic process where we do a lot of consultation and reach to a conclusion. These there are ancient travelers from China also documented that system existed. So this whole idea that any system like is a feudal, it's only like a feudal system India had. It's a very lopsided and very Marxist point of view, which is definitely not scientific. Andolanji, just one last point. No matter what system is, as long as there is a good grievance redressal system available in the society, that is helps the economy to benefit. you have
So
much better
my
economy right
limited
now.
point was, a Vishwanath, is, whatever was there as a model, right? It was working in our favor before the advent of Islam in this country, right? I mean, we were the largest economy. What USA and Canada put together are today, we were 1,000 years back in 1080, 33% of the world economy. So
That's
where is
correct.
that model? Where
No,
is that
that's the
model? Why aren't we
that
talking
is
about it? Yeah.
no, that's absolutely correct. And as much as we can talk, we can definitely, what is most important here is that the people were able to find recourses for their disputes through a system which everybody trusted in. And people take that, the people who would pass judgments like punch and all, they would assume themselves as nothing less than the sacred, they're performing a sacred duty, so they cannot have their own personal biases get into this, judgment. And there's a lot of documentation done on this. Max Muller seminal work, India, what it can teach us, it actually describes that how the panchayat system worked, and this was Max Muller telling to the British officers going to India.
Acha, one of the other key factors which I've been, reading about, the historical economic model, we were, I mean, if I have to put a definition, we were neither a capitalistic economy, neither we were communist or socialistic economy. We were enterprising economy. The maximum amount of value addition to the economy was done by micro enterprises across the country. There were specialized tradesmen, there were specialized skill the families, and these were very prosperous micro enterprises, across the country. I mean, just apart from just pure agriculture, what somebody would like to believe, we had a huge amount of specialization in shoemaking, cloth making, various kind of jewelry making, where various kind of metal making, those were all in, high demand in the export market. And that is why we were 33% of the global economy. The consumption was not just internal to Indian economy. Otherwise, we would have never risen beyond the, percentage of population, which is, 15, 16% or 17% at that particular point of time of the global population. We also, our economy was roughly, percentage contribution of our economy was 1.5 times to 2 times of that of our population. So it is quite clear that there was significant amount of value add coming in from overseas economies into India, and that cannot just be tagged to, agriculture producers, which are, volatile in nature, that they will spoil very easily, not fit for export outside India, at least during those days. We didn't had cold storage trucks or ships at that particular point of time. So we were definitely exporting value added products. And those value added products were coming from consortium of micro enterprises. But rather than me taking alone a lot of time, let me go to San, and then we go to Amal, Shri, and Love. San, over to you. Rise of Islam equals decline in economy.
Yeah, thank you, Anand. Let the next speaker speak. I'll speak after that. I'm just have to finishing up something. Yeah.
Sure.
Let next speaker. I'll come back.
Yeah, Amal or Shri, would you like to speak on the topic?
Okay, can I speak now?
Of course you can. Go ahead.
Yes, yeah. So, like, with respect to the topic, I would like to say that there is a correlation because a couple of days back I was like watching a video of an ex-Muslim from Bangladesh, and she's a particle physicist, if I believe. Yeah. I think she was a particle physicist. So, what I basically understood from like watching all of these things is that. When it comes to the like an Islamic country or anything like that, they're very good with trade and like the commercial trade and stuff like that. Like as Praveen said, I'm also from Kerala, and I have to agree with that point that they are pretty good with trade. But then comes the question: what if they don't find resources? You can see like places like Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan, like the most of the Middle East, or what they are because they already have sufficient like oil reserve, and that's the reason why they are rich the way that they are. Otherwise, would they be the same way, or would they have the same type of economy? Because if you look in terms of the GDP per capita, you would see that Qatar and Kuwait and these countries are among the top 5, top 10. And usually, I think Qatar is usually in the first, usually named the first in terms of GDP per capita. But I would like to say that that's probably because of the the oil reserves that they have. They're basically really good at trading things which they already have. So what if we take that
हाँ,
away from?
अमल जी, थोड़ा सा मेरे ख्याल से बार बार हम लोग एक चीज थोड़ा सा मिस कर रहे हैं. वी आर नॉट टॉकिंग कंटेम्पररी ओनली, right? We are talking about a big period of time, 10th century AD all the way up to now, subcontinent's
Yeah.
economy and the impact of Islam.
Okay. Yeah. I'm getting to that. So basically, what I was saying that yeah, with respect to trade, it has always been there. That I think the Islamic countries. No, I'm not talking about the Islamic countries which are our neighbors, but I'm talking about Middle East to be specific. So I think they were really good with trade, uh, but I don't think they were good with anything else. For instance, you could say that India is a country. Even at that time, we had innovation in a lot of things. We had innovation in mathematics. We had innovation in science. So all of these things contributed to making a better economy at that point of time. But at the same time, if you look at it, let it be at this time or in the previous years, most of the scientific achievements or the economic innovations have not been there in an Islamic country, because the reason for that being, and there is a particular reason for that, you could speak with ex-Muslims from all of these places. Throughout the years, one of the main reasons is that the innovations or the researches which are being done into the economy or scientific researches, which would contradict the religion, and that won't happen. Anything which contradicts the religion cannot exist, and that is one of the main reasons why most of the Islamic nations today or Islamic nations before were not really good with uh, any of the things other than trade. They are pretty good with trade. That you have to agree with that. That
Yeah.
they have found
So
resources
just
from.
when, so sorry, you're done with your points, Amal. Can you take 30 seconds to conclude? Then we'll move forward.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, basically that's what my point is. If the Western world, or if India was not there, if these countries were not there, and if the entire world were filled with Islamic nations, then you won't see the amount of prosperity that nations were having right now or before that. So that's basically my point. They have taken a lot of things from the traditional Western and Indian concepts and used it. If not for them, I don't think
Yeah.
Islamic nations would have ever
Got
made
it.
anything.
So, Amal, brings a very valid point, which generates one more question, right? One of the documented fact in history is one of the key destruction by Islamic invasion was the university system and the complete body of knowledge in the Indian subcontinent. We may also like to evaluate, would that have had any impact on the innovation and the economic models after, when exactly did this burning of universities take place? That was, I think, 11th AD or something like that.
Bakhtiyar Khilji.
Yeah.
Khilji, na, with the
And that was even so. That was Nalanda. I think the all the university systems and the body of knowledge
Takshashila.
was taken out.
Actually, the
Yeah.
same thing was observed not only in India, but if you see the Christian growth in the European countries. Even there was a movie called Agora. Even the the earlier Greco-Roman culture, the libraries, everything was demolished, because this is a nature of the iconoclastic religions. They have to destroy the history and knowledge. That is, they have to start from zero. So, but that doesn't translate to economics much, I think, because that is purely a political domination aspect.
But Pravinji, if you have when I look at the Indian universities, right, they had full courses on economics, right? Unlike Europe, where the focus was just on science and arts, the Indian universities. Yeah, if you can mute a mic, Pravinji, one second. Yeah. So and economics come out of scientific innovation and discoveries. So I was just talking about metallurgy. I was talking about shoemaking. I was talking about pottery. I was talking about handicraft. Metallurgy specifically, because metallurgy is entirely with respect to scientific innovation. So if your university system is demolished in a period of couple of years or few years or in couple of decades, then of course its impact on your subcontinent's economy would ring for hundreds of years. I mean, so that could also be one factor. But let me now move to there are quite a few new speakers on the panel. Let me go to them as well. So we go to Shri, and then
Can I come in, speak now?
San. Yeah, you were pending before, so go ahead.
Thank you, Andolan, for doing this room. It's a very good topic. I think the survey, economic survey you pinned on top of this is from the Angus Madison's, economic survey, a millennial perspective. This is also been studied by different people. Everybody has come to the same conclusion about the economic prosperity or economic growth world over, and contribution of different regions to that. The first book, I think, in this aspect that was written was from not British, an American author by the name Will Durant. The name of the book is A Case for India. So he also makes the same point. So this is basically studied by multiple people who have come to the same conclusion. That's about the survey. And coming back to the actual.
So just to clarify, San, what was the conclusion of these authors? Because I have not probably read this. Have they reached the same conclusion at what I have pasted as the topic, or the conclusion is
Yeah,
slightly
pretty much.
different?
I think what you pasted is from Angus
No,
Madison's.
I'm talking about the heading of the room, that Islam's rise economic tanks.
No, that is basically a conclusion we can make. So it basically says they don't make that conclusion explicitly, but we can do the correlation and see what the reasons are. So basically, we can see the rise of Islam in India and decline of Indian economy. That it's visible very clearly. Then, again, all Angus Madison did was present the data. It's for us to make the conclusion. But Will Durant, who wrote the book A Case for India, that was written, is an American author. It was written in, I think, 1920s, before independence. He makes explicitly the same conclusion, saying that the Islamic invasion was very devastating for India. He has written multiple books, and all the books say the same thing. But Angus Madison doesn't make that directly, but indirectly he makes that point. But Will Durant is more direct in that regard.
Okay.
Yeah. So moving on to a couple of things, right? One, there is plenty of evidence for Indian prosperity in theoretical science as practical science as well. For example, mathematics and all those things. As soon as the Islamic invasion started, you can see all the seeds of learning started moving south. So the most important school of mathematics is Kerala School of Mathematics, because that's where Islamic invasions reached kind of in the last. Before that, the destruction happened from the north. That's where the seat of learning kept on moving southwards. So we can see all the knowledge that is produced in India has been copied from Chinese students and travelers as well. And also Arabs, basically pre-Islamic Arabs used to come study here, or we used to have Indian teachers in Arabia, and with the schools and all those things. They were the ones who copied Indian mathematics, and that's how the West came to know it as Indo-Arabic mathematics.
So not only mathematics, Indian steel was very famous in Arabia. For example, wood steel was used for making Damascus swords. The wood steel was discovered in India, and for a long time nobody knew how to replicate it. Only Indians knew the recipe. It is locally, it is called ukku. In Kannada, it's still the name for the steel is ukku in Kannada. So that's where the name comes from, wood steel. Also, we'll see a lot of references to Indian textiles all over the world. You can see the references in King Solomon's court. They do specifically mention Indian fabric. This is before the birth of Christianity. So Islam came much later. All that vanished with the advent of Islamic inventions, Islamic invaders in India. So yeah, there's plenty of
A
evidence.
small question, Sam. A
Yeah.
small question, right? The initial brunt of Islamic invasion was more prominent into the northwest and the northern part of India. At that time, was the southern part of India doing better than the northern part of India? Is there any evidences to that effect? So it would probably further strengthen my hypothesis that the if northern part and northwest part of India was more let me not use the term infested, or it was more influenced by Islam, the growth rate declined, and whereas South kept on, pumping economy. Is there any evidences to that effect, or was this decline homogeneous across the country?
No, we can clearly see the evidence to the knowledge export. That's what I was mentioning before. The only school of mathematics that survived to an extent was Kerala School of Mathematics, and that was from the southern area. So that is because all these scholars moved from north to south. In terms of exports, there was a lot of upheaval in the north, and we can see that by the end of 12th or 13th century, we were more known for not for textiles and steel, but known for more of a spices and all those things.
In fact, San, Leelavati by Bhaskacharya was, I think, written in 1100 or something. So, it is a proof that, South was booming and Travancore kingdom was booming like anything.
Yeah, exactly. So Kashmir used to be the seat of learning. Even the Panini comes from Swat Valley. The guy who wrote grammar, Sanskrit grammar, he's from Swat Valley. So all those seats of learning, we know two important universities, Nalanda and Takshashila, which were destroyed. But there were plenty. There were a lot in Kashmir. There were a lot near Afghan border. Those were destroyed much before Nalanda and Takshashila. So there's plenty of evidence to this effect that South was the last to bear the brunt, and they kept on producing this knowledge and the economic output.
Okay, so there are quite a few. Let me do one thing. Since the speaker section has increased, let me first limit the speaker session to 60 seconds. Take inputs from everybody who's remaining, and then we will do a open house in terms of we will not follow PTR thereafter after taking the initial level inputs and feedback from the speakers who have not spoken till now. After that, we will move to mic flashes. So Shri, Love, Ayush. But my humble submission would be if we can restrict our points to key points, and then we would cover the details subsequently. Shri, over to you.
So, if we can compare the scientific discoveries, so our population is 1.5 billion, and total Muslim population is more than 2 billion. Uh, the number of Nobel Prize winners in sciences, only sciences, I'm not talking about literature and other part. I think there are only 3 of them. And I think India has similar or better number for sciences, I think. And if you take a look at the number of patents filed by Indians, is more than 60,000. And if you compare with the Islamic world, I think it's way lesser than that. So when it comes to new scientific discovery, I believe a strong belief limits your imagination, and it further like it will not allow you to open up your mind as a society. That's it.
Valid point. I think it's a relevant one, gravitating towards in favor of the room title. Love, over to you.
Sir, I want to speak on stats. Sir, during 1600 to 1700, sir, the Indian subcontinent under Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb, the policies based on Islamic economics becomes the world largest economy ahead of China.
अच्छा लव
But
भाई, एक ऊपर मैंने चार्ट लगा रखा है, एक बार जरा आप उसको रेफर करेंगे तो ये जो आपकी क्या कहते हैं मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन है ये क्लियर हो जाएगी.
okay, sir, I will see it later.
या गो अहेड.
Sir, in 1870, India's economy had a 9.2% share of the world income under the British Empire after the 170 year after the rule of Aurangzeb. In 1990, under the British Empire, the share of manufacturing declined to 2%. In 1952, after the independence, India's economy had a 3.8 share of the world income. But sir, in the present time, the Islamic country plays a crucial role in Indian economy, as India's bilateral trade with the GCC Gulf Cooperation Council is about $154 billion. And in them, UAE is India's largest trading partner after US and China. And we know the population of UAE is very less and the economy in comparison to US and China. So I think the Islamic countries plays a very crucial role in uplifting the economy, and we are also getting much money from the labor class which went to the Gulf countries, and the earning came in our country by those peoples. So these countries are very responsible and have a significant role in making our economy better. So sir, just I want to speak.
Okay. Point taken, but those were more contemporary. I would strongly encourage you to look at the chart I have pinned, which talks about global share of Indian economy from 10th century AD all the way up to now. Ayushi, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Andolanji. Well, I would refer to one of the Western leaders, one of the Western writers by the name of Christopher Sellis, in order to not include any biasness. Now, he mentions a very great aspect that before the so-called Islam invasion that was actually done in India, India was through a very, India was actually witnessing a political stability at that time. And that political stability was also seen in the economical booming. But he mentions a very interesting thing that as soon as the invasion of Islam actually happened into the early 12th century, you'd find an interesting connection that there was two things that happened. The so-called political stability that was there in India, it was destroyed, and that the repercussions of which was also seen into the economical capacity. Now he mentions a very interesting point, and with somehow or the other justice, today's topic as well, that there was a two division that came into existence, and it also started that North after 12th century have become a melting pot of different cultures, and that is why any identity and any culture or even the other things was not given a proper time to stabilize in the northern part. Whereas on the southern part, which was quite less penetrated with the invasion, especially with that of the Islam, you would actually see that idea in the south is quite frequent, or rather there was a certain freedom of idea which prevailed in the south, and that freedom of idea was visible in terms of people's living standard, in terms of the people economical condition. So the aspect is, it's not just about the economical instability that they created, but that economical instability was also seen in the way of living, and also the so-called the ideologies that was being spread, especially in the ideas and the freedom. So it has, I would say, huge repercussions. So that are my points, sir. Thank you.
Can we move to the next speaker? I'll just busy for a couple of minutes, so if one of the other bots can just take it over.
I'm sorry, who is the next speaker?
Currently, we are in PTR,
Oh,
Sanj.
Okay, Gaurav?
Yeah, it's me. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, Gaurav. You got like a minute to make your point. Go ahead.
Yeah. So first of all, like the paper means like since ancient times, like if we talk about like take from the Mauryan Empire, like since Mauryan to Gupta Empire, like the India was actually developing scientifically, and actually some great works were done during that time, and we have produced great scientists like during that time, like Aryabhatta, Bhaskaracharya. The world knows about it. But after the decline of the Gupta Empire, there was an invasion of the Huns. They were almost as cruel as the Muslim. They were the same central. There was central nomadic tribes, and actually there was some decline in our overall research abilities because we were under invasion. But still, we somehow managed that, and there were research going on, and we produced some great result. But again, after there was invasion, and that was a final blow, you know. And from that, like we eventually moved towards
Your voice
like
is not clear.
from a scientific community to a religion. Yeah, yes, sir, from a scientific community to a religious community, right? But like currently, right now, that someone from here was saying that UAE is our third largest trading partner or something. Definitely, yes, UAE is our third largest trading partner. But if you say it currently, that the figure, like we have a trade deficit with them. The only thing we import from them is oil, and what do they import from us? Like technology, right? Our technological or our engineering goods. So we give our uh, so we are much more intelligent than them. We have much more to give to them, but they can only offer us only their oil. Without their oil, they have no value.
Ji
The
Gaurav ji.
only country which we have, but that's what I'm trying to say. And our largest
Sure.
trade partner is USA, and with them we have a trade surplus. So that speaks of our capability. Like without it, we are technologically ahead of these Gulf countries. We can create our own technology. That's it.
Thank you, Gaurav ji. We'll move on to Hiraji and then Thales. Hiraji, if you are around, the mic is yours. Or we can move to Thales. Apparently, Hiraji is not here right now. Thales, if you are around, it's your mic.
Thank you, Andolanji. Yeah, I mean, look, let's be honest here. The entire history of the spread of Islam has been an annihilation of every culture, ideology, religion that existed before it. It's an annihilation ideology. And generally, wherever it goes, you see ruin. Um, and so, for anyone who would argue that Islamic nations, oh, they're so wealthy, there's only one reason for that, and that's just so happens that their lands have a lot of oil. Without the oil, what is the contribution? It's really nothing. So they've been very blessed by having massive natural resources, but even with that, they squandered it. You have so many princes and in all of these countries are sheikhs and whatnot, and all of them take their piece of pie. They are playboys in Europe with their mega yachts and whatnot, but they don't really produce anything. Those countries are really in big trouble. In another 50 years, they're probably likely to be irrelevant. So, um, yeah, look, and then look at the spread of Islam in places like Africa, Afghanistan. You have the Taliban. You in Iraq, ISIS, Syria. Syria, Somalia, Nigeria. It's just death and destruction, really. I mean, that's the practical, realistic. That's the reality of where we've seen Islam spread, and yeah. So economically, I don't know if there's any benefit. That being said, I don't know if historically we've any kind of political, religious philosophy throughout all of history. It's never been good for the economy of any nation ever. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Tails. Sabzi and then Sim. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
just a
come to you,
quick
Sim.
point. I really
Okay.
appreciate what Thel said. The problem, Andolanji, is that whenever religion, which is looking backwards, tries to solve the problem of contemporary time and borrowing the inspiration from the past completely and not taking the cognizance of the dynamic, the changing time of reality. And this also applies to the countries which right now they look like they are doing well, right? For example, somebody said the Iran is doing well, but say about same thing about Cuba and North Korea. Closed economies may be doing well for their own people. I don't know whether they are doing, but they're not producing anything for global good. That actually is the very fundamental in today's time for economic growth. That's all I wanted to say.
अच्छा, एक इसमें बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग फैक्ट ये भी देखने को आता है कि 10th सेंचुरी एडी में lot of people try to throw mud on the Indian society when it comes to the caste and other things. But apparently, if whatever discrimination people throw muck at India, the above chart actually proves it otherwise. The economic, and that to microeconomy, where every person or every segment of society was a participatory to the benefits of the economy, were enjoying the benefits of a robust economic system. So whatever system was there, it was working for all.
Yeah, exactly, Andolan. Also, there is a book by Dharampal. It's called Beautiful Tree. This is a book about Indian education system in 18th century. This book is based on the surveys conducted by British in Madras Presidency. At that time, Madras Presidency was huge. It included, today's some parts of today's Tamil Nadu, Andhra, even Kerala, some parts of Karnataka as well. So in that survey, it shows that the studies by British have been done from I think 1850 to 1920. So when they started the studies of Indian school system, they did the yearly survey. So in the beginning, in 1850s, it clearly shows that the population in the school is a fair, equal representative of the general population of that area, meaning that all castes were equally represented. Not only among students, even the teachers were equally represented among all castes. Not only Brahmins were the teachers, other castes were so-called the Dalits or SC/ST. They were also teachers. This is in 1850, but at the end of the survey, I think last survey was done in 1920s. In that, you can see that all these people with skills, people who used to work with their hands, like carpenters, these castes were completely out of school system. It was dominated by only a few the so-called upper caste system. So for this discrimination, it is clearly evident that the British has to answer why it happened and what happened. So this need to be studied further.
So, the idea was not to divert away from the impact of Islam on subcontinent's economy. Gyanji is there with us. Gyanji, if you see the pinned report and chart above, it clearly depicts कि जैसे जैसे इंडिया में या सब कॉन्टिनेंट में इस्लाम का प्रभाव बढ़ता गया, वैसे वैसे इकोनॉमी डिप होती गई. और सर, चूंकि आजकल इस तरीके के टॉपिक करने में डर भी लगता है, तो सर इस टॉपिक को ब्लास्फेमस मान के कहीं मेरे ऊपर वो सरतन से जुदा तो नहीं हो जाएगा सर? ये भी जरा थोड़ा बता दिएगा, चूंकि आप लॉयर हैं.
आपके ऊपर बहुत सारे
देखिए,
फतवे निकले हुए हैं.
ऐसा है कि सर तन से जुदा तो किसी का भी हो सकता है, क्योंकि जो लोग उस बात को कहते हैं उनका ना डेमोक्रेसी पे भरोसा होता है, ना कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पे भरोसा होता है, ना कोर्ट पे भरोसा होता है, ना सरकार पे भरोसा होता है. तो वो तो एक क्या कहते हैं, कहीं पे भी मैं या विदेश में किसी गली कूचे में बड़े भाई का कुर्ता और छोटे भाई का पजामा पहन के कोई भी कह देगा कि भाई सर तन से जुदा करो. तो जान तो हथेली पे रख के ही करना पड़ेगा, जो कुछ भी करना पड़ेगा। अब सवाल ये है कि इकोनॉमिक हिस्ट्री और इस्लाम, देखिए जितन जहाँ से इस्लाम चला वहां पे थोड़ी बहुत बरकत या पैसा देखने को मिला। वो तब से मिला जब वहां पे तेल निकला और इंडस्ट्रियल रिवॉल्यूशन में पेट्रोल और डीजल और मिट्टी के तेल और इन चीजों की आवश्यकता पड़ी। जब तक क्या कहते हैं इन चीजों की कोई जरूरत नहीं थी, जनरेटर्स नहीं थे, गाड़ियां नहीं थी, तो वो उस जमाने में भूखे ही मर रहे थे। ये एक हिस्टोरिकल फैक्ट है, क्योंकि कोई फसल वगैरह वहां होती नहीं है, जानवरों को मार के खाने के अलावा कोई ऑप्शन नहीं है, और कुछ वहां पे होता नहीं है काम धंधा। तो फिर बस जानवरों को मार के खाओ, या फिर क्या कहते हैं अपने मौज मस्ती जिसे कहते हैं, जो एक एक आदमी 10-10 बीवियां 15-15 बीवियां रखता है, वो करो।
नहीं सर, ज्ञान सर, एक ट्रेड बहुत प्रेवलेंट थी इस्लामिक वर्ल्ड में ड्यूरिंग मिडिल एजेस, विच वाज स्लेव ट्रेड. So that also provided a lot of export revenues to the Islamic empires, right? So let's not forget that.
हाँ, तो स्लेव ट्रेड में तो ऐसा था ना जी के इथियोपिया में जो है क्रिश्चियन एम्पायर होता था, तो वहां पे जब ये इस्लाम वाले पहुंचे, उधर स्पेन तक पहुंच गए, या इधर क्या कहते हैं धीरे धीरे करके पाकिस्तान तक आ गए, हिंदुस्तान तक आ गए, तो वो चीज जो है बेसिकली वो एक बाकायदा मैंने एनसीईआरटी की बुक में बचपन में पढ़ा था इस चीज को, कि जो ये कहते हैं ना कि मुस्लिम इन्वेडर्स आए, तो उसकी रीजनिंग उसमें ये दी हुई थी कि भाई उनके इलाकों में क्योंकि खेतीबाड़ी कुछ नहीं होती, खाना खत्म हो जाता था सीजन के बाद में, एक एक पर्टिकुलर सीजन में ही थोड़ा बहुत खाना रहता था, और वो उसमें स्टोरेज वगैरह भी कर लें तो भी उनका मतलब एक पूरा नहीं पड़ता था उनको खाना। तो इस वजह से वो आप देखेंगे वो निरंतर ही आक्रमण करते रहते थे। जितने भी मुस्लिम इन्वेडर्स आए हैं वो उन इलाकों से आए हैं। अब तो चीजें टेक्नोलॉजी बढ़ गई और माल एक देश से दूसरी जगह, एक दुनिया के एक कोने से दूसरी कोने पे पहुंच सकता है। आप उस समय को देखिए जब आज से क्या कहते हैं 250-300 साल पहले तक, कि जब कोई ये ना ट्रेन थी ना क्या कहते हैं बसेस थी ना शिप थे, शिप तो थे लेकिन मतलब वो एक आम आदमी के उसमें नहीं थे। तो वो चीज जो थी वो उनको फोर्स करती थी कि वो निरंतर लड़ाई में रहें, निरंतर आक्रमण में रहें। तो उनको सोना चांदी मंदिरों में पड़ा हुआ या इस तरह की चीजें, उनके लिए तो वो बहुत बड़ी चीजें थी। और इसी वजह से उनकी कल्चर में भी वही चीजें थी कि अगर कुछ नहीं मिल रहा, खाने को कुछ नहीं है, तो औरत कोई बेच के खा जाओ, स्लेव कोई बेच के खा जाओ। क्योंकि जब इंसान की सबसे पहली जो जरूरत होती है वो तो भूख है। अगर भूख लगेगी उसको तो वो कुछ भी करेगा। तो ये जो परंपरा, अब जैसे मैं एक आपको वीडियो पिन करूंगा, मैंने कल ट्वीट भी किया था कि अफगानिस्तान है, अब जैसे करंट हालत बता रहा हूँ, तो वो अफगानिस्तान में जो है अब वहां पे इतनी भुखमरी फैल रही है कि छोटी छोटी बच्चियां जो है वो वहां पे बेची जा रही हैं। और ये जो है मतलब सीएनएन की बाकायदा डॉक्यूमेंट्री है वीडियो के साथ। तो ये
तो
मैं
सर, ये तो
देखिए,
जहाँ जहाँ इस्लाम बढ़ेगा वहाँ इकोनॉमिक मॉडल ऑफ इस्लाम तो प्रिवेल करेगा ना, स्लेव ट्रेडिंग एंड सेक्स स्लेव ट्रेडिंग.
हाँ वो वही चीज है। देखिए मॉडल ऑफ इस्लाम बेसिकली देखिए, दो ह्यूमन ज्योग्राफी जो है जो पढ़ाई जाएगी, ह्यूमन ज्योग्राफी में एक चीज पढ़ाई जाती है
अच्छा, एक
कि जो
जस्ट ऑन अ
भी,
लाइटर साइड ज्ञान भाई, मेरे ख्याल से
जी
ह्यूमन एज अ रिसोर्स सबसे पहले क्या कहते हैं इस्लामिक इकोनॉमिक मॉडल में यूज करा गया था मेरे ख्याल से, नहीं?
हाँ जी भाई
आज का
वो
जो
मैं
मॉडर्न एचआर डिपार्टमेंट है दैट कैन बी क्रेडिटेड टू इस्लाम, राइट?
बिल्कुल ऐसा है ना।
ह्यूमन एज अ
देखिए
रिसोर्स.
आप, हमें हमें थोड़ा सा उस सिचुएशन को समझना पड़ेगा कि 1400-1500 साल बाद एक रेगिस्तान की जगह है, वहां पे खाने को कुछ नहीं है, पानी भी नहीं है मतलब पीने को, तो वो हाथ भी धोते हैं तो इस स्टाइल में धोते हैं कि उनका ज्यादा से ज्यादा शरीर पे पानी आ जाए, कम से कम पानी। तो ऐसी सिचुएशन में जो है वहां पे लकड़ियां भी नहीं है कि कोई इंसान मर जाए तो उसे जला लें, तो धूल में ही अपना डाल डाल दिया, दफन हो गया वहीं पे। तो वो जो सिचुएशन है वहां पे आप इनकी जितनी भी चीजें देखेंगे, ह्यूमन ज्योग्राफी में बाकायदे पढ़ाया जाता है कि इंसान जो भी कल्चर डेवलप करता है वो वहां की सरकमस्टेंसेस के हिसाब से डेवलप करता है। तो उनकी सरकमस्टेंसेस ही ऐसी हैं, वो करेंगे क्या बेचारे। आप कहते हो कि साहब मस्जिद में मूर्तियां नहीं होनी चाहिए। अरे भाई वहां पे धूल होती है, वो मूर्तियां कहाँ से बनाएंगे। मूर्तियां बनाने के लिए कुछ कलाकृति चाहिए, कुछ क्या कहते हैं एक हुनर चाहिए। तो जब पूरा ही रेगिस्तान है वहां पे तो वो धूल टिकेगी भी नहीं, और अगर मिट्टी की वो धूल की मूर्ति बना भी देंगे तो वो कितने दिन टिकेगी। तो ये जो हालात हैं वहां पे उसमें इस्लाम उपजा, और फिर लूट करना उनकी मजबूरी थी। इसकी हमें हंसी नहीं उड़ानी चाहिए, हम लोग हंसी उड़ाते हैं लेकिन गलत बात है वो। बेसिकली लूट उनकी मजबूरी थी। और जब हिंदुस्तान में आए, आप बाबरनामा पढ़ो, बाबरनामा में वो बेचारा बाबर जो है, मुझे तो बेचारा ही लगा वो बात सुन के। उसको आम के बाग देख देख के बहुत खुशी हो रही थी कि देखो क्या कहते हैं आम के बाग है यहाँ पे। अब ऐसे भूखे नंगे लोग जो है वो आए यहाँ पे, और उनको फिर ये लूट का माल अब मंदिरों में क्या कहते हैं वो समझ थोड़ी ना पाए उन चीजों को, वो लूट लिया उन्होंने। जिस कल्चर में औरतों को बेच बेच के बेचारे अपना पेट भर रहे हैं, तो वो उनके लिए तो ये मंदिरों में सोना पड़ा हुआ है, ये तो बहुत बड़ी चीज हो गई। तो वो चीज जो है, तो इकोनॉमी का तो कंसेप्ट ही नहीं था। आप इनका पूरे जितना भी लिटरेचर है इस्लाम का वो उठा के देख लीजिएगा, कहीं पे भी अगर इन्होंने अर्थव्यवस्था की बात करी हो तो फिर आप हमें बताइए। हमारे यहाँ तो सनातन समाज में एक बाकायदा वर्ग था जो व्यापार की बातें करता था, जिसको वैश्य समाज कहते हैं। हमारे यहाँ एक नियंत्रण करने वाला बाकायदा, जैसे मुद्रा राक्षस जो चाणक्य ने लिखा, बाकायदा उसका एक फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर टाइप का व्यक्ति था। तो इतिहास जो है, क्योंकि यहाँ पे संपन्नता थी, तो उसको मैनेजमेंट करने के लिए भी उसका व्यक्ति चाहिएगा कोई। मैनेजमेंट के लिए यहाँ पे फिर चाणक्य ने उस जमाने में अर्थशास्त्र लिख दिया, बिफोर क्राइस्ट, बीसी में लिख दिया। उनके यहाँ तो जब कुछ है ही नहीं, तो वो अर्थशास्त्र क्या, अर्थ का वो पैसा नहीं दिख रहा उन्हें, तो आप अर्थशास्त्र की बातें कर रहे हो। पेट भर जाए यही बहुत है।
नहीं ज्ञान सर, थोड़ा तो लिखा गया है वहाँ पे भी अर्थशास्त्र के बारे में। एक मैंने टेक्स्ट पढ़ा था जिसमें जो रेट ऑफ स्लेव्स हैं वो कैसे डिफाइन करने, उसके क्या क्या क्राइटेरिया हैं, उसका एक इलस्ट्रेटेड जर्नल है इस्लामिक स्कॉलर्स का।
हाँ वो भी है, लेकिन एक चीज आपको और बता दूं कि मैं हालांकि उस चीज को थोड़ा कंफर्म करना चाहता हूँ कि मैंने कहीं पे लेकिन ऑथेंटिक सोर्स से, किसी से एथीस्ट से मैंने सुना था कि इस्लामिक लॉ के मुताबिक अगर किसी व्यक्ति का बच्चा नहीं होता, लड़का नहीं होता, सॉरी बच्चा नहीं, लड़का नहीं होता, तो जिस तरह से उसमें कुरान में डिवीजन बताया है प्रॉपर्टी का, वो प्रोपोर्शन जब आप
हाँ,
ऐड
मैथमेटिकली
करेंगे
वन नहीं होता है वो सर।
वो
राहुल
वन
गांधी
नहीं।
मॉडल जो था ना, जो
हाँ
अभी
हाँ
राहुल
हाँ
गांधी जी ने 1/3 प्लस 3/4 को जोड़ के इक्वल टू 1 बना दिया था, कुछ कुछ
हाँ।
वैसे ही मॉडल है सर।
तो वो अब कुरान में कौन सा मैथमेटिक्स है, अब बताओ मैथमेटिक्स कहाँ से बेचारों को समझ में आएगा, जब वो गणित तो बनियों का काम है ना, जो जो बेचारे जिनके पास धन होता है वो वहां पे गणित चलता है। तो उनका जैसा भी था अच्छा था, वो अपने गधे पे बैठ के अपना गए थे
हाँ,
जहां भी गए थे।
चलिए हम लोग थोड़ा सा इकोनॉमी पे वापस आते हैं।
जी।
सो यू नो वी वर एंड दिस रूम इज गेटिंग रिकॉर्डेड आल्सो, सो पीपल हु आर देयर इन द लिसनर पैनल, जो जिन्होंने रूम शुरू से नहीं सुन पाए हैं, मैं उस लिंक को दोबारा पिन कर देता हूं जिस पे ये पूरी चर्चा चल रही थी। 10वीं सेंचुरी के स्टार्ट में जो इंडियन इकोनॉमी थी वो पूरे विश्व की इकोनॉमी का करीबन 35% हिस्सा थी। 10वीं शताब्दी के बाद से इस्लाम का हिंदुस्तान में या भारत में या सब कॉन्टिनेंट जिसको आज बोलते हैं उसमें आगाज हुआ, एंड देर इज अ डायरेक्ट प्रपोर्शन, राइज ऑफ इस्लाम इज इक्वल टू डिक्लाइन ऑफ इकोनॉमी, एटलीस्ट इन दी सब कॉन्टिनेंट परस्पेक्टिव। तो उस विषय पे हम लोग चर्चा कर रहे थे। यहाँ पे अभी तक हमको जो भी व्यू पॉइंट मिले, कोई भी लॉजिकल व्यू पॉइंट इस हाइपोथेसिस के अगेंस्ट स्टैंड नहीं करा है, तो अभी तक अगर इस पे कोई फर्दर डिटेल में आगे और बोलना चाहता है, मैं तब तक लिंक उसको दोबारा लगा देता हूँ. सो हीरा, यू वर नॉट देयर अर्लियर एंड श्याम हैज जॉइंड इन नाउ. So if any of you want to speak, please go ahead. And till the time, I'll update the link back. Shyam or Piyush, if you want to speak, please open your mic and speak.
I have only a limited point, which is that these main Islamic countries like Saudi, they just got lucky with the oil being present there, and even that they couldn't manage themselves. That the Americans had to come and basically make this entire deal with them and gave the Saud family the entire country, out of which Saudi Arabia is named, and the fact that they cannot use their own resources. For example, Afghanistan, they have so many resources, but because they are so bound by the book that they cannot be objective enough to think of developing anything regarding the economy, or even forget inventing anything, even using their own resources. So that was my only limited point, that they have, at least these main countries got lucky with oil, and even that they couldn't manage. I mean, they need Western countries to basically to deal with the devil, and then themselves, whatever's been happening with the other Islamic countries, we know. So this is the kind of compromise that they've done, but they have not been able to do anything themselves regarding because they're so bound by the book that they cannot think beyond that.
Actually, I had the same graph and I had another presentation, a detailed PowerPoint. Actually, it's very interesting that the percentage of world trade, the same graph which you have put there, if you look at it carefully, at AD 1000, it was 39% of the world trade. And by the time, the initial raiders, Muslim raiders was done, and Babur took charge of it, became 32%. And if you see how the economy did till the British took over, the EIC defeats, the Marathas and takes over, the percentage was 23%. And so from 39% to 23%, the Muslim raiders plus the Islamic rulers managed to damage our economy. And then from 23% to, by the time we were, in 1900, it became 11%. And if you see, when the British left, it was 7% of the world economy.
3%, sir.
I mean,
Shamli, 3%, if I'm not wrong, at the time of
no,
independence.
you can look at the graph. Okay, when Nehru took over, you will see the economy. It's almost at the top of that hill. You can see there, right in
Yeah.
1947, 7% of the world economy. And then by the time liberation, the 9/11, the 91 change of our method happened, we were 4% of the world economy. And then onwards, it has been expanding. Okay. So you can see not only how
Yes, you are right. I just cross-checked. You are right. Yes.
okay, because I have a very detailed presentation on this on my screen actually right now, because there's a number of things that you can relate to this graph, including, it is almost funny, but there is a very interesting presentation on how the Islamic invasion has damaged not only our economy, but also our social structures. There is a very interesting presentation from, most unlikely Sangi source, that is the St. Xavier's College, Calcutta, has got a history series on the web. If you go there,
Acha,
you will
Shyam
see that.
sir,
Yeah,
if you have a link, if you can back channel me, that would be very great.
yeah, I will afterwards. Okay, I'll do that. But if you see not only the economy, how But how economy changed our social structure, they say that, because of, uh, see, up to 1000 AD, if you look at Indian subcontinent, urbanization was going on a fast scale. That means the production, almost our art, and art means like, exporting items, were produced mostly around urban centers. But due to this Muslim raiders from 1000 to 1200, if you see, there's a fast de-urbanization of India, because urban centers were the easiest to raid and collect money and run away, and to collect people. So people actually shifted from urban centers where they were almost every year they were getting raided by the Islamic raiders, right? And they started moving more into the rural areas, and they've set up groups of people who do the same job. Like that's the first time our Hinduism changes from the Varna system to job based jati system. That has, this particular series from St. Xavier's, they do a beautiful job of tracing the time on this, how Hinduism changed with the raiding of 1000 to 1200. And what happened is, till then, till 1000 AD, you could go to a city and join almost a trade school, or become an apprentice under any merchant who is dealing with leather or some other technology. And so there was no rigidity in the caste system. But what happened after this raiding, when deurbanization happened, people started moving away from the city centers, actually. And the people who knew this, see, in a shrinking economy, what happens is people tend to teach their trade only to the people, to their own children, or to their relative, or to their group of people. So the more and more people were getting into a very rigid system of work, because if one was mochi, his son took up the profession of mochi. And they also, another important thing was that you can see these raiders, what they used to do is they used to raid and take your money, and children and ladies of physically good looking and physically fit young ladies, they used to murder basically men, and take, or except for few who could be really used as slaves. So
So we just saw, Shyamji, is it the same model what was done to Yazidis in the Iraq, Iran area, right?
yes,
We just saw
so
that. Yeah.
so what happened is, it has a lot of social implications for India. What happened is, these people started becoming jati based. For the first time, the society became, the jadis were based on what you are doing. Before it was not that. One could travel up or down the Varna system. But this is the point at which it changes. And the, the effect is so profound that even the marriages, which was before 1000 AD, was during daytime. If you go to the regions where it was raining, you will see the marriages shifted from daytime to night times. Even now, and even from the old times, South Indian marriages happen in daytime. They don't happen at night. And see, the drum and the music and the goda and all that is relatively new to the marriage, actually, even in the north. According to this thing, they were done mostly in secret at night, so that they would not attract attention from the Islamic raiders, And another very, very, very important change that happened is age of marriage moved downwards. That is, people, as soon as the girls were getting a little bit big, they were getting married off. So the change in age of marriage, and also even in dressing. It is the first, actually, if you see, according to history, before 1000 AD, the style of covering their face or covering their appearance was not there. It seems, I'm reading from what I have read in the history of that. So even dressing changed, age of marriage changed, and the time of marriage, you know, and how the marriages were conducted. It was done in before the marriages could happen over long distances. There was no fear of somebody taking away the girl. But this became like when the Jadis became rigid, they were marrying almost their immediate neighbors or very within their community. So society became more and more rigid. It's a very profound thing. You have to see those series. It explains it so well.
Shamji, what you have raised today, it's very interesting points, right? I mean, a lot of points most of the point makes a lot of sense. We probably never thought it this way, and this in itself deserves a separate room. So what I have done, Shamji, I've just followed you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll chat up with you when you are online, and maybe if possible, if you have those links, if you can either back channel me, or alternatively what I'll do, I'll telegram you my telegram ID. If you can send the PPTs or all the documents that you were just referring to me on my telegram, it would be greatly appreciated. And I think I've got the topic for my next room as well. Very, very interesting viewpoints.
Thank you. Actually, since Gyan is also here, I'll tell you guys who are interested. We have set up, along with Gyan, we have set up a room which is basic purpose. I mean, those who are offended, please. It's this room which we have set up. Mr. Gyan is Advocate Gyan is also a member of it. We have set up. Gyan is also an administrator in that room. It is set up exclusively to share the resources of correctly interpreting the Hindutva and Hinduism, and and basically, I mean, I'm just going to talk. I mean, divert from the topic for a quick second, okay? Basically, see, for example, uh, the Nupur Sharma. I'm just going to deviate. Please forgive me for 2 minutes. The Nupur Sharma case. We have a group of people crying foul, saying that their prophet has been insulted. But if you see it, the person
सर
who
इसमें श्याम जी मैं थोड़ा सा, चूंकि ये पूरा डिरेल हो जाएगा टॉपिक, क्योंकि इस विषय पे कई बार
no,
चर्चा
no,
हो
no,
चुकी है.
no, no. What I'm
हाँ,
saying is the purpose of that room. That is purpose of that room. It is to respond to such events on all India scale in a consistent manner all across India with same resources. We have lots of excels and presentations and things that we can share each other, so that anybody, any Hindu running their room can justify and clearly explain things with the help of each other. That room is exclusively for that purpose. It's a private room, and it is not those who are uncomfortable with such discussions. That means those who are those who think they are too secular are not welcome to join. So there is a room like that. Okay. Anyway, okay. Coming back to the topic. So basically, another aspect of this society which was affected is very often talked about is sati. Actually, you would see in the
अच्छा श्याम जी,
yeah
मे आई मे आई जस्ट क्योंकि वो थोड़ा सा फिर वो सारे टॉपिक अगर डिस्कस हो जाते हैं ना, so this is a recorded conversation today,
yeah
and the topic is specifically with respect to rise of Islam and the deteriorating economy.
yes
So it will
okay
move away from. So what
okay
I've
sure
done is
okay. I
followed
will not
you,
I
and
will
we
not
will
go into that. Okay.
yeah.
No, but I just wanted to say even that is affected by this economic, this Islamic invasion. That's all I want to point out in that respect. Okay, that is social impact of uh, the raiding of the Islamic raids into India. That's a very 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 exhaustive subject. We
Sure.
should discuss it some other time.
So what we will do is, today we kept a room on economy. We will also do a room on the social impact on subcontinent on the rise of Islam. And the points that you raised today are very pertinent, very relevant, and worth discussing in an open room. I think it should not be limited to a closed room, because this kind of information needs to go out to a broader audience, and definitely a good discussion to have. With that, let me request people. I think most of the points with respect to this particular topic, I believe, has been made. Let us take concluding remarks from the panelist, and post which we will close the room. Just for the information of all, this room is recorded room. You would find it under the club detailed discussion. We in this club detailed discussion, we pick up a topic and discuss it threadbare, and so people who have not been able to join the full discussion can refer to the recording subsequently to the rooms getting finished. So let me now ask anybody if they want to make concluding remarks, and with the flash of mic, and then we can go ahead and yeah, Gyan sir.
देखिए मुझे एक छोटी सी बात ये कहनी थी कि द फ्यूचर ऑफ दीज गल्फ कंट्रीज स्पेशली कि अब जो है इनके पास, जैसे मैंने कहा कि सिर्फ दे वर हैविंग ओनली द ऑयल as their sole resource. And in the coming era, I should say that within 10 years only, 5 or 10 years, all the vehicles they will be working on electricity. So the necessity of oil would diminish to a large scale. And in such circumstances, there are two repercussions of that. One, the economy of these countries, Gulf countries, and oil-rich countries, that would sink badly. But further repercussion is that they may resort to their old tactics, old things of invading other regions, especially the countries who are having some atomic power or something like weapons of mass destructions. So, what I think myself is, that's my personal opinion, that within 10 or 15 years or much before that, we can witness a kind of first economic warfare and then the real war. So we have to be prepared for that. But that is crucial thing for us, because I feel that these oil-rich country have no other resource, and this is because of this reason only that nowadays we find that UAE, it is little bit opening up its society. They have allowed their women to drive cars. They have allowed to open these bars and pubs there to a little extent. But the king there, he understands the fate of these oil rich countries. So if they want to join the new era of globalization and market economy, in that they will have to open for the world. But the problem with those people is that they don't want to open up for the world in a manner as Western or Indian society does. So they will have to either give up their radical ideas of Islam, or they will have to create such a power that they can again invade other countries, which is unlikely. They are unlikely to win in such a situation. So therefore, there will be something clashes in a near future. That's all. Thank you.
जी. Anybody else would like to make concluding remarks? Neeraj ji, Sanji, Hira ji, Thales ji, and gentleman. He has not even spoken. आपका कुछ नाम नहीं है. Dot ji. RGHVM. Yeah, please go ahead and make your point as well as the concluding remarks.
जी थैंक यू प्रोफेसर
आपकी आवाज बहुत
सुंदरलाल
कम
की
आ
एक
रही है. थोड़ा
किताब है
माइक के पास आइए प्लीज.
जिसको भारत सरकार ने 40 साल पहले सूचना एवं प्रसारण मंत्रालय ने पब्लिकेशन कराया। उसके पहले
आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है. थोड़ा माइक
मेरी
के
आवाज
पास आ जाइए प्लीज. आवाज बहुत कम आ रही है.
क्या अभी सुनाई दे रही है?
हाँ, बेहतर है. पहले से बेहतर है.
क्या अब मेरी
नहीं सर, फिर आवाज चली गई.
प्रोफेसर
फिर आवाज चली गई सर. थोड़ा कुछ प्रॉब्लम है. आप एक बार एग्जिट करके एंटर आइए तो शायद चल जाए. तब तक मैं, अगर कोई और इस पे कंक्लूडिंग रिमार्क देना चाहता है तो मैं पूछ लेता हूँ. नीरज जी और श्याम जी. पहले श्याम जी बोल लेते हैं, फिर नीरज जी आपके पास आ जाते हैं. दैट्स ओके. हाँ, श्याम जी कंक्लूडिंग रिमार्क, बट थोड़ा
Yeah.
सा 60 सेकंड में ही कर लीजिएगा. हाँ.
Okay. Yeah. Another very important aspect you need to discuss when economic is concerned, the imposition of jizya, and how since 50% of the products were basically being taken away as tax, it resulted in economic degradation as well as corruption. That's also a big part of our problems, that that directly explains in the graph. Okay,
Valid
that's
points. Valid.
that's all.
So let me try RGHV जी. एक बार आप फिर ट्राई कर लीजिए.
Oh, by the way, link is put in the chat room. Okay, the link to our group.
अच्छा, आप मुझे बैक चैनल कर सकते हैं क्या श्याम सर? मैंने आपको फॉलो कर लिया. आप मुझे बैक चैनल पे मैसेज कर दीजिए लिंक का, इफ
Okay,
पॉसिबल.
sure. Got it. Sorry.
हाँ.
Okay, got it.
RGH, you can open your mic and speak.
हाँ सर, क्या मेरी आवाज आ रही?
नहीं सर, आवाज आपकी बहुत कम है, बट ठीक है. मेक योर पॉइंट. विल ट्राई टू.
ओके सर. प्रोफेसर सुंदरलाल की एक किताब है जिसको भारत सरकार ने 40 ईयर से पहले पब्लिकेशन कराया. उसके पहले ही पेज पर आज के 400 साल पहले फ्रांस का ट्रेवलर आया था वर्नियर. उसका कोट है. वह ये कहता है, हिंदुस्तान एक गड्ढा है जो अथाह है, जिसका डीप वगैरह कुछ कैलकुलेशन नहीं किया जा सकता. इसमें संसार का सारा सोना चांदी चारों तरफ से अलग अलग रूप से आकर के जमा होता है, लेकिन इससे बाहर निकलने का उसे कोई भी रास्ता नहीं मिलता है. दूसरा प्रोफेसर धर्मपाल की किताब है, अभी किसी भाई ने पहले भी जिक्र किया था, द ब्यूटीफुल ट्री, जिसमें विलियम एडम्स का पेज 310 पर उसका जो डाटा है, उसने जो सर्वे किया था पूरे भारत में स्टूडेंट कितने परसेंट हैं पढ़ने में, और टीचर्स का कैलकुलेशन कितने, कास्ट वाइज कितना टीचर्स हैं, कैसे, उसके बारे में वो डाटा है. जो ये कहता है, एक मात्र मैं बिहार का एग्जाम्पल देता हूँ, इसमें 285 कुछ टीचर हैं, ओनली 185 या 86 ही ब्राह्मण हैं, बाकी सारे जो हैं वो अदर कास्ट से बिलोंग करते हैं. स्टूडेंट में भी बिहार का ही है, 2000 से ऊपर कुछ स्टूडेंट हैं पूरे बिहार में, और ओनली 250 के आसपास ब्राह्मण है, बाकी सब अदर कास्ट है, ओबीसी, एससी, एसटी और कायस्थ वगैरह जो भी है। तो यह जो नैरेटिव चला रहा है यहाँ पर, ब्राह्मणों ने शोषण किया और ब्राह्मणों ने अत्याचार किया ओबीसी एसटी के ऊपर। यहाँ तक कि यह भी कहा जाता है कि उनके कान में शीशा पिघला के डालते थे। तो यह जो जीडीपी है, किसने इसमें कंट्रीब्यूट किया, यह तो उनको जवाब देना चाहिए पड़ेगा जो यह क्वेश्चन खड़ा करते हैं ब्राह्मणों के ऊपर। हालांकि मैं ब्राह्मण नहीं हूँ, लेकिन फिर भी जो साइंटिफिक जो ट्रूथ है, जो वो तो फैक्ट है, वो तो उस पर तो क्वेश्चन तो होगा, उनको रिस्पॉन्स देना पड़ेगा। और यदि शूद्रों के कान में शीशा पिघला के डाला गया, तो आज भी शूद्रों की संख्या ब्राह्मणों से ज्यादा है। तो
जी जी।
अभी भी फर्क होता
हाँ,
ही
वो
है।
थोड़ा सा कास्ट ड्रिवन डिस्कशन हो गया, हम लोग अभी वहां पे नहीं जाना चाहते हैं क्योंकि ये
तो ठीक है।
इस्लाम और इकोनॉमी से रिलेटेड है। हाँ
देखिए, बोलने
आपको यह
को
जो
बेवकूफ लोग, देखिए सुनिए 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 डॉक्टर साहब, ऐसा होता है कि बोलने वाले हजारों होते हैं, लेकिन हमें किसकी सुननी है ये महत्वपूर्ण होता है, और समाज को किसकी सुननी है। भगवान ने अच्छी बुरी हर तरह की चीज बनाई है। अब वो जो है, समस्या इस देश में क्या रही कि इतने साल की गुलामी के बाद में एक ऐसा वर्ग खड़ा हो गया इस देश में जो कहता है कि सारे धर्म एक समान है। अब एक धर्म जो क्या कहते हैं, जैसे मैंने बताया कि भाई औरतों को बेचना रिवाज था, उसको जो है वो सही ठहराता है, तो वो कहीं ना कहीं से हिंदू धर्म में भी वही चीज निकाल के लाएंगे और कहेंगे यहाँ पे भी होता था। जबकि सनातन की एक खास विशेषता ये है कि यहाँ पे आपके शास्त्र हैं, धर्मशास्त्र हैं, वेद हैं, सब कुछ है, लेकिन आपको डंडा लेके कोई खड़ा नहीं हुआ कि तू इसको मान ही मान। ये बेसिक है सनातन का। तो जब जबकि उन अब्राहमिक फेथ में ये डंडा लेके लोग खड़े हुए हैं, फतवा जारी कर देंगे, ये सरकलम कर देंगे कि आपको मानना ही मानना है वो। तो ये जितनी बकवास लोग करते हैं और शास्त्रों का रेफरेंस देते हैं, ये महामूरख के अलावा और कुछ नहीं है। और आप उनमें एक कॉमन चीजें पाएंगे, जो भी इस तरह की बकवास शास्त्रों का सहारा लेके करते हैं, कि वो लकीर के फकीर होंगे। लकीर के फकीर इस तरह से होंगे कि वो कहीं से कोई शास्त्र का एक सेंटेंस पकड़ लेंगे और फिर क्या कहते हैं उसको मिस इंटरप्रेट करेंगे, गलत ट्रांसलेशन करेंगे, उसका टेक्स्ट ना जान के, उसका कंटेक्स्ट ना जान के, कुछ भी उनको ज्ञान नहीं होगा, बस वो एक लाइन पकड़ के चीखते चिल्लाते रहेंगे।
हाँ, पर ज्ञान जी इसमें बस एक चीज मैं ये इंक्लूड करना चाहूंगा, मुझे थोड़ा सा कंक्लूड करना है जल्दी, तो नीरज जी के पास में मुझे 30 सेकंड के लिए जाना। पर जो पॉइंट डॉट साहब ने रेस करा वो भी बड़ा रेलेवेंट है, क्योंकि इन सब विषयों पे समसामयिक चर्चा होती ही नहीं है, और इसीलिए जो ऑल्टरनेट प्रोपोगेंडा है वो फैलता जाता है। आज इस रूम से एक चीज तो क्लियरली स्टैब्लिश हुई, और इस पे कोई भी आप देखेंगे हम लोगों ने मौका सबको दिया, हमेशा हाथ ओपन रखा गया, हमेशा क्लब में स्पीकर स्लॉट पे सबको बैठने का मौका दिया गया। लेकिन यह बात निरक्षर मतलब एक सत्य तो नहीं कहेंगे क्योंकि एक ओपिनियन है, पर ये ओपिनियन की कंकरेंस लॉजिकल तौर से इस रूम पे हुई कि इस्लाम राइज इज इक्वल टू डिक्लाइन ऑफ इकोनॉमी, एटलीस्ट इन सबकॉन्टिनेंट्स केस। एंड अभी नीरज जी ने ऊपर यहाँ पे एक आर्टिकल भी लिखाया है, हाउ द मुगल्स लूटेड इंडिया। एंड एज आई टोल्ड यू, दिस रूम इज रिकॉर्डेड। जिसने शुरू से कॉन्वर्सेशन नहीं सुना है, please do hear this conversation. It was a very good conversation, and we talked about data, facts, comparative analysis in the last 2.5 hours since the time this room has been running. Not 2.5 hour, I think 1.5 hour to 2 hours. So the largely the contention made in this room found a general agreement across the speaker panel. But with this, I would allow Neeraj ji to make concluding remarks, and then, with the permission of all the moderators, speakers, and listeners, I would like to close the room. Neeraj ji, over to you.
Thank you, Andolan ji. First of
मैं
all,
30 सेकंड
Andolan
और
ji,
थोड़ा सा एक जोड़ूंगा इस फैक्ट, उसके बाद फिर आप प्लीज। जो कहा जाता है मुगलों ने यहाँ पे जीडीपी में कंट्रीब्यूट किया, तो आप देखेंगे ध्यान से अंगस मेडिसन की जो वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमी मैनेजर पर्सपेक्टिव जो बुक है, तो आप देखेंगे उसमें मुगल के आने के बाद में तो जीडीपी हमारी 25-26 तक आ गई। उसके पहले मुगल जब नहीं आए थे, जब यहाँ पे इन्वेंटर अटैक करते थे, इसके पहले 30%, 31%, और जब इन लोगों का पोर्चुगीज के बढ़ गया था
39%.
यस यस। तो किसको बेवकूफ बनाती है, तो समझ में नहीं आता है इनका। थैंक यू, मुझे आपने चांस दिया।
Ji, Neeraj bhai.
ji, thank you. Yeah. So, Andolan ji, thank you for having such informative rooms every time. I mean, you surprise all of us with such rooms, but it was great. I was listening. And you started off with a premise that, whether, the rise of Islam leads to the economic downfall. And by the end of this discussion, we came to know about a lot of things from a lot of people, speakers have contributed. One of these articles, it's shared by, it's not, I haven't found this article, but somebody shared with me. I was reading this article, it's a very long article. But one of the important facts which came up in this article was that they said that in Turkey and Iran and all those places, you required one treasury, one treasurer to take care of all the tax which you collected. But when they came to India, they were not ready for this much amount of money and loot, and so they had around 9 treasuries, and they required a lot of people to manage these treasuries. And it is there is a reference also mentioned which I don't remember as of now. Slave trade and sex slavery was very prevalent, and it is still going on. If you see the kind of videos which I see and the kind of news which we are getting from various parts of Middle East and within the country also, it's a matter of great concern for the whole world to look into the way women are abused in countries like Pakistan, in Afghanistan. It's a matter of concern for all of us, because we live in a global world. So it's very very disturbing for us who have who haven't seen something like that, and we cannot be mute spectators to all that. And this economy of slavery and sex slavery and loot and the kind of economies which we have seen over there, it's a matter of concern. And we are seeing all around us that how stone pelting is happening and how people are rushing to destroy a vibrant and a growing economy like India. It's a matter of concern, and that pushes us to to rethink that what's wrong. I mean, nobody, like, you go to a gurdwara, you go to a temple, you go to a church, nobody comes out of these places and starts throwing stones. What is happening inside these places, especially mosque I'm asking about, what's happening inside there should be scrutinized. There's a need to investigate. There's a need to look into the kind of syllabus which we are allowing in this country. Another very important thing is the kind of money for Hajj. We are building the Hajj house. So this is beyond my understanding, and why we are funding the same thing, I have no idea. How come this Hajj subsidy is still going on? What are we to achieve this?
आपकी आवाज चली गई नीरज जी.
If you and after immediately after Mughals, it was the British era who looted India. So continuous loot of this 1,000 plus years. Like Sindh was taken over in 700
अच्छा
AD, I
नीरज
believe.
भाई,
So
एक मेरा छोटा
yeah,
सा क्वेश्चन है, जो कांग्रेस के बुद्धिजीवी हैं, जैसे कि हमारे केरला के जो एमपी हैं, क्या नाम है उनका, वो जो बड़े हैंडसम से रहते हैं, वो क्या नाम है, शशि थरूर जी, हाँ,
yeah.
वो क्या कहते हैं, ब्रिटिशर्स की लूट का तो उल्लेख करते हैं, पर जब मुगल्स और इस्लामिक इन्वेडर्स की लूट की बात आती है तो वो कहीं ना कहीं मतलब अपने आप को उससे बचते हैं, ऐसा क्यों है, मतलब
It
इज
is,
देयर अ पर्टिकुलर रीजन टू इट?
yeah, it's very evident because Britishers do not vote for Congress. The day Britishers will vote for Congress, I think they will not speak about against Britishers also. It is pure appeasement. It is pure appeasement of a community which they think that if they talk about Mughals, the those who think that they're descendants of the Mughals will be hurt. So it is a matter of concern. I mean, in short, you know the answer. I mean, I don't need to say it.
Right.
So I just want to
But
summarize and say that this continuous loot of 1,000 plus years, and the time when India is trying to come out, we are again, the powers, the world powers around us are trying to push us back, and we need to come out of it. We need to maintain the law and order in this country. Yeah, thank you.
so it's not just the loot, but the psychology which goes behind this loot, which comes a lot from ideology. The ideology states that you not gonna come back, you're gonna die, and then either it's heaven and hell for you.
And this
So
this
that is why
ideology.
there is no motivation. Just one second, Neeraj bhai. So in this ideology, there is no motivation or incentive to create infrastructure. The only motivation and incentive is to exploit resources till its maximum. And that is probably the reason why the rise of Islam takes away the infrastructural growth, the growth of economy, and the loss of societal values as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a very small point. Like when you said that, this thought process, this ideology, this political ideology always thinks of how can I take somebody else. Like, I think that's the same where, you don't want to work hard. It's the same socialist, because that's why I believe these leftist cabal also finds a very good, partner in Islamist jihadis, because both of them think that by working hard and getting your stuff by hard work, that's not that's not what they believe in. And I think that in Uttar Pradesh sometimes they say lala banale rehna to hum nahi hai. This kind of ideology, if it exists around you, I mean, you can understand that they always look at what you possess, and they are looking for an opportune time to snatch it from you. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Neeraj ji. And as stated, a very good conversation for the last 2 hours. And people who have missed it, you can look at the replays. Replays are
मैं
normally
थोड़ा
available only after
मैं
the
थोड़ा
room closes. Just 1 second.
मैं थोड़ा ऐड करना
हाँ जी,
मैं 30 सेकंड जो और कुछ जोड़ना चाहता हूँ।
हाँ हाँ, बोल लीजिए.
हाँ, एक बुक है हु वाज शुद्रास, इसको राइटर हैं इसके डॉक्टर बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर। और एक और बुक है उसका भी नाम है हु वाज शुद्रास, इसके राइटर हैं डॉक्टर त्रिभुवन सिंह। जब आप इसको पढ़ते हैं तो इसमें जो भी डाटा है, फैक्ट है, वो सब अंग्रेजों के समय के ही हैं। आरटी वगैरह के तहत उन्होंने हासिल किया है और उन्होंने इस बुक में सब मेंशन किया है। जब आप इसको पढ़ते हैं तो आपको यह मालूम होता है जैसे आज काशी विश्वनाथ एक स्ट्रक्चर के नीचे दबा पड़ा हुआ था, अब पता चला, तब वैसे ही सेम आपको पता चलता है कि आपके पूर्वजों का जो नॉलेज है, जो ज्ञान है, उसके ऊपर ये जो हरामी है उनने गंद उसके ऊपर फैला करके उसको दबा करके रखा हुआ है। तो हमें आपको अपना हिस्ट्री खुद ढूंढना पड़ेगा और इनके भरोसे यदि हम बैठे हैं तो हमें पता चलेगा कुछ नहीं मिलने वाला है। थैंक यू
जी, धन्यवाद. और अगर आप सब स्पीकर्स की और मॉड्स की आज्ञा हो, Sanji, would you like to make a concluding remark? We were just about to close.
No, Andan, I'm good. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. So now with the permission of all the mods and a speaker, let me thank every speaker who is here and was here. It was a very informative session, very good points made. जो एक दो रूम्स आगे हम लोग इस डिटेल्ड डिस्कशन में लगाने की सोच रहे हैं. पहला तो ये मैंने अपने डीपी पे लगा रखा है, about.
This video was made possible by Creative Contents.